Yeah.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to our special council meeting for January 11th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. We'll bring out item 2, approval of this morning's agenda. Councilor Young, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Shankar, that the agenda for the special council meeting of January 2020 be approved as presented.
Thank you very much, Councilor Young. Just before we approve the agenda, I just did want to note I've got to run out at about 10:45 to a little after 11. The Special Olympics day is down at the Prescott Legion, so just going to go down there for a bit. So I don't know if we can coordinate a quick break around that time, or I can just turn the chair over to someone else. However, wherever it works when we're in the discussion. So I'll try to get back as quickly as I can, but I committed to this long before we schedule this meeting, so I really feel an obligation to go. So just let me know. It's just down at the Legion, so it shouldn't be very long. Any comments, questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. I have 3 declarations of interest. Any declarations this morning? Seeing none. And 4 takes us to the reason we're here this morning. Under staff, 4.1 is our council strategic planning sessions being facilitated again by Greg Lovitz. Welcome back, Greg. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
After a few years away there. Staff, Matthew, did you want to lead us into anything, or should I turn it right over to Greg?
No, so I'll walk through the introduction and purpose as well as the status report. Greg will be doing the review of the vision, mission, and values, which I believe you received earlier this week. And then the strategic priorities, Greg will be leading that as well. So we've scheduled a number of hours for today, and want to make sure that we are able to have a full discussion around what is really council's strategic plan. So while staff is in the room, we're here to listen, to understand the thoughts behind the initiatives, and really be able to help to understand where you're coming from and what you want to achieve. And really this is a look at the next 3 to 5 years. And so we thought we'd start by taking a look at where we've been over the last few years, what we're continuing to work on and what we've achieved. And then that will hopefully really set nicely into are those still what we want to look at going forward, and what do we need to add to those. So with that, we'll change gears a little bit and flip over to the other presentation. So just nice, simple, straightforward, and if I turn on the flipper, there we go. So what I did is I took the strategic plan and just each of the items that were identified in it, and then gave it a little bit of where we are and what we're doing. So developing the North and South Highway 401 industrial lands, that's an ongoing initiative. But what we've really found is, as we've been exploring opportunities with numerous developers and fielding questions, is that the official plan review that we just kicked off this week, and then the subsequent zoning bylaw, are really things that we need to have in place to be able to really foster some of that development in those areas. And so I think for us, if you take a look at what is an enabling activity or an enabling document, those two are going to be key in how we move forward and be able to be ready for that type of development as they move forward. The next one was expanding the industrial commercial base through area partnerships, and so the St. Lawrence Economic Development Corridor was formed, and which we are a founding member of, and so certainly we're moving in that direction. We've also working towards working with our neighbors in Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal to be able to support that industrial and commercial enhancement as well. Securing Highway 401 hotel development, that's ongoing. And again, what we've seen is being able to have an official plan and zoning bylaw that really allows for that type of development in areas that people are interested in putting it. So we see those as 2 enabling documents as well, and a very important aspect of how we move that forward. Completing the woodland subdivision, it's always ongoing, and developing residential lands ongoing as well. So again, I'm going to refer to the official plan and zoning bylaw a few times, and as we move forward through the official plan review, that's something that we really need to take a sober second thought about, is how do we feel about intensification of usage for when it comes to residential lands? Because while we do have some residential land, vacant land available. We really need to think about how are we going to make the best use of that land, what is the mix between high density, low density, medium density, and then how do we move those forward. And I think that will require that thought process as we go through the official plan. Official plan and zoning bylaws. So the official plan, we're kicking off this year in 2020. Once we get through the bulk of that, we'll be moving to the zoning bylaw in 2021. And I think as we move through the first 6 to 9 months of this year, that we'll start to really be able to see the changes to the zoning bylaw that will be required to be able to enact the official plan. Economic development strategy, business retention and expansion. Business retention and expansion was completed. You heard the other day when we talked about the official plan review that economic development is going to be a key focus, both from our feedback from the public as well as being able to take a look at what forming the basis of an overall strategic plan for economic development. Revised marketing and branding. So this really was talking about social media website. Social media has been well developed. I think we have a very good reach from a social media standpoint, and to the point that other municipalities are quite impressed with what we've been able to achieve. The new website was created. We're now, it's kind of stabilized for the last few years, and what we're now focusing on is content review and making sure that documents that people are interested in are easy to get to and simple and straightforward. Mobile app was tried. We had the discussion, we promoted it, it wasn't well used, and so that was discontinued after a certain period of time. Cleaning the town signage, BIA, Highway 401, Industrial Park. So again, you heard in the official plan review the other day, is that wayfinding is going to be a key component of that, and how do we get people to where we need to get them? How do we use that as part of an attraction as well as a tourism type of initiative? And so again, that would be part and parcel of that. So when we were taking a look at the official plan review is how could we achieve a lot of the enablers of what this strategic plan was trying to achieve, and being able to incorporate that into the official plan review. And then finally, contract private sector, local municipalities to examine opportunities for regional transportation, and we're exploring those with the city of Rockville and or Voyageville, which is through Voyageurs. So those are ongoing, and certainly it's something that we talked about as part of the project grouping for 2020, which is part of the budget process as well. Infrastructure and renewal, so continued review of water and wastewater systems to develop more capacity. So the water main mapping is being finalized. We have taken all of the measurements. We are just in the final process of putting that into a GIS database, and so we'll be happy when that should be done in the first quarter of this year. In 2020, one of the projects that we'll be discussing as we go through the budget process is a complete storm and sanitary sewer cammering study, which will identify not only the condition, but also where infiltration is occurring in our system. And then we'll also, in the last couple of years, with the introduction of St. Lawrence Street, as well as Linda, and then most recently Henry, we've been focusing on reconstructing streets that don't have separate storm sewer. So really, we've gone a long way along that one, and we'll be very excited to see the outcome of the cammering study, to be able to exactly determine how we can make investments to really reduce the amount of pressure that's on our wastewater treatment plant. Review options for cutting residential rates for water and sewer, and we've held the rate steady until 2019. There was a 3% last year, and then certainly we'll be contemplating one as part of the 2020 budget as well. Review the sale and sale of water and sewer services. So we have established an agreement with Edwardsburg Cardinal that forms the basis of future sales, and then we need to explore the possibility of property tax sharing for developments where we're providing water and sewer. And so it's something that certainly we, not only we provide water and sewer, but then that has the advantage for those other municipalities of actually increasing the value of the land that they're promoting. So certainly that's something that we would also want to explore, is that tax sharing. Exploring revenue, creating septic opportunities. I think for me that's an interesting one where we might spend a lot of resources and time, but not necessarily have a large payback on that one. So
That
something
was a
that
Craig Cohen project from a number of years ago that I just didn't completely pay.
And then extending water and sewer services. Augusta Landings have put in an application for 2020 for development where we would connect off of Henry Street. The Ontario Job Site Challenge, which Mayor Sayal will be coming to Council on February 3rd to discuss, that would conceivably have the possibility of extending services north of the 401 through a partnership with Edwardsburg Cardinal, us, and then the province of Ontario. So stay tuned for that one as well.
For those of council that don't know that one, that was Mayor Sayal did approach the sewer board at the last meeting just to review it. Matthew, we did ask him to come back to council for the full presentation, so we'll be doing essentially the same presentation again to all of council. Interesting opportunity tied to the provincial job site challenge, but there are a lot of parameters with it. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, both for them and for us. And we'll hear about that shortly.
So continuing with infrastructure renewal development, so developing the geographical information system. So we partnered with the United Counties, and then as we've been doing our water and sewer work, we're also putting that on GIS so that the two will be integrated. And then as we move forward with our official plan, all of that information as well will be integrated back into our GIS. So we're very happy to be partnering with the United Counties on that. It's a low cost opportunity for us where we don't have to either have a consultant doing it or have in-house expertise. And so that's working quite well. Construct a new fire station, that is complete. Rejuvenate the Leo Boylan Community Center, we're working toward the replacement of that with a multi-use recreation complex. Prince Street Fields, same thing there. If we're going to be successful in our multi-use recreation complex, then certainly that has the possibility of replacing the Prince Street Fields. And then creating a long-term plan for facility maintenance and renewal, asset management plan, and linkage to capital. So facility engineering evaluations are now complete. The building system inventory evaluation is ongoing and nearing completion. And what I'm talking about there is that our plumbers, electricians, HVAC, all of those specialties have actually been taking an inventory of all of our building subsystems and being able to say what is its current state, what is its long-term viability, and then what do we need to do from a preventative maintenance standpoint. Next step is to assemble that in an overall asset management plan, and then creating the long-term financial plan that then links back to the capital. So certainly it's an ongoing iterative process, and 2020 will be a busy year for it, and as you're aware, we also have to meet provincial requirements for 2021 as well for having a number of parts of the plan in place. Finally, continuing energy conservation, LED street lighting project was an example. The LED street lighting completion is on the capital list for 2020 for consideration. Also, the water and wastewater plant have gone through energy evaluations that were completed by Aqua, and a number of recommendations came out of that. A number of them were already implemented as part of our renovation project to the water treatment plant, and we just recently passed at the wastewater management board, getting about halfway there to the major recommendations on the wastewater treatment plant, and we would like to revisit that to implement the full recommendations. So significant progress when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant, and so we're happy that those are three of our large consumers of energy, and that we've already completed and are a long way along those projects as well. Downtown revitalization, continuing the streetscaping, lighting, signage, banner flower projects, that's ongoing. Continued development of farmers and crafters market. Really that needs a bylaw to be updated to attract a broader group, and being able to make sure that it's a sustainable model that we're using. Research possible private-public investments to re-energize the downtown. I think we've seen that as part of the community improvement plan. It's aided greatly in the revitalization of the downtown area, and so we're very happy with that, and we'll come back to that in a moment. completing a splash pad, that will be opening in 2020. Review harbor expansion, waterfront hotel development. So when we're talking about the harbor expansion in and of itself, and I'm just going to focus on the marina for a moment, is that we do have an engineering report, talks about the infrastructure and the fact it's starting to get aging. And so we need to think about harbor expansion or marina expansion in that context. What is the logical way to replace some of the infrastructure while also being able to take advantage of perhaps maximizing the amount of dock space we have available? And I think waterfront lands need further thought, and so the part of the projects for 2020 was also taking a look at the lands on the east side of the fort and being able to see if there's possibilities of looking at that. So that will be part of our conversation again as we move forward through the budgeting process. Exploring Centennial Park and Kelly's Bay beach improvements. So Centennial Park will have the splash pad in 2020, and the Kelly's Bay beach is on the list for consideration for 2021. And so, but certainly we'll continue having the conversation as part of the 2020 budget as well. Continuing on, developing more recreation programs along the waterfront. So follow the rec master plan. It made a number of recommendations around recreation and being able to activate that recreational program to take advantage of the beautiful river that we have, and then creating a brownfield development strategy. And so it was developed and included as part of the community improvement plan. We're happy to say that we've already addressed one brownfield application as part of that program, and I think before we had that tool that we were at a loss to be able to address those types of things through incentives and being able to support that. So that's been good as well. Tourism, cultural and heritage, identifying properties for designated and listing. We have a register of designated and listed properties. Just the other day we had another individual that was interested in perhaps pursuing designation, and so we're happy to support that as well. Exploring provincial heritage property tax relief program. I think that is something that we can absolutely give to the Heritage Committee to take a hold of and move forward with. I would like Council to consider, is that truly a strategic priority of Council and the strategic plan, or is that something that you would like to task to one of our committees? Exploring the federal provincial grant opportunities for historical buildings. Same thing there. Is that truly a Council strategic direction, or is that something that you'd like to task the Heritage Committee with? Reviewing and promoting the community improvement plan. We're very happy to say that was completed. We had a large intake in 2018 and 2019, and then we're going to be moving into a promotional effort in 2020 to make sure that we're able to really continue with the great advancements that we've had in this start. Exploring the purchase and renewal opportunities for historical properties. I'd like Council to think about, is that really the business we want to be in, is owning historical properties? And so certainly it's really incumbent upon you to have that conversation, and if it's something that we want to put resources behind, then absolutely we will do so, but is it something that we should be in the business of doing? Supporting and expanding cultural activities, certainly through partnerships with the Fort, Shakespeare, RTO 9, those are things that we're happy to be part of and that we'll continue to strengthen. Creating a tourism strategy, and we really see that as being part and parcel of the official plan and discussions that we're having there, and developing a rec master plan, which has been completed. Operational efficiency, and I have to say I'm getting to the end, so that's good. Implementing new records management system, that's been completed. We do have a file hold in place, and I think what we've noticed is that we're a lot further along using file hold than some of the other municipalities. We still have opportunities to improve and get better at it, but I think we've achieved a lot in the last few years in regard to that. Implementing meeting management software, that's our e-scribe, and the systems that you have and are able to access through your iPads, and so that's been a good development as well. Revised and developed human resource policies and procedures is complete. We're happy to say, and just to give you an update on that, we are also now working on our standard operating procedures for our Health and Safety Committee, and it's a very we were able to, again, work with Pathway, and they have a fantastic standard operating procedure manual, and so we're now going through that in a fairly quick manner and adopting a lot of those policies. So they're not policies but procedures, and so certainly we're happy from that perspective. Review the fire service agreements with our neighboring municipalities. The technical aspects that were completed towards the end of last year between the fire chiefs. Now it's incumbent upon staff and council to work together to discuss the financial component, which we obviously want to move forward with in 2020. Reviewing and developing the financial management policies and procedures. Certainly we passed a few, and then that will be our focus for 2020 as well. Implementing new financial management software is complete. Implement IT processes and control. We've moved a long way down that road, and we're happy to say that we've implemented a number of things that enhance our business continuity. And so in an event where we have a cyber attack or that this building becomes unavailable or inaccessible, then we have a number of backup possibilities where we would still be able to function as a town and move forward. Finally, we have supporting and updating bylaws, including but not limited to property standards, parking, development charges, municipal fees. Development charges and parking is now complete. We have completed, we're next up on that list is property standards and animal control, and municipal fees is something that we want to accomplish as part of the 2020 budget as well. So that's a review of everything that's in our current strategic plan, and more than happy to field any questions. But if there are none, then we'd certainly turn it over to Greg to take on the next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Any comments, questions on that very thorough presentation?
Well, it's obvious as we did this that, as Matthew has mentioned, and as we're reading through it, there's a lot of stuff that's already been done that we've completed, and then there's a lot of stuff that's absolutely redundant because it just doesn't fit in with what's happened in the last few years anymore. So just taking that out and all going home, we have a much smaller strategic plan than we have right now, but I guess what things do
Is that a motion?
Yeah. Do I hear a second? No, but seriously, if we just took those things out that are already completed, are redundant because they don't make sense anymore, are we seeing that they're not relative, we would still have a strategic plan and it would still be the ongoing things that we continue to do. But I think the interesting part here is to see what we want to add on based on what's happened in the last few years and where we see ourselves going, and where the new people that are here that weren't here when we did this originally see ourselves going.
Thank you. Further comments from members of council? Seeing none, so I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, I just wanted to show one thing before we get going, is that happened to be in Kingston yesterday, and this is their strategic plan, and really at the end of the day, this is what we would like to try and get to is, and when you flip over to the very first page, it says Council Strategic Plan. And so that's what really today is all about. It's your strategic plan, and then how could we as staff be able to implement that plan for you. And when you go through here, it's broken down into some overall themes, and so here's kind of the preamble, but then they also have kind of those things that we just kind of reviewed, and it has the measurable outcome. And so being able to say, and as we move forward in this process, is making sure that every one of those items has a measurable outcome is going to be key in being able to say, how are we doing on this? And what I'd like to do is actually implement kind of a quarterly review of the strategic plan to say, how are we doing on this, and linking the strategic plan initiatives to agenda items as we move along. So that way we can say, are we achieving what we said we were going to achieve? Are we achieving the timelines? And is it measurable? And so as we kind of talk about that with Greg and go through those, think about what the measurement would be. And then that really helps staff to be able to formulate how we move those forward.
We actually did that the last time along. I don't know if it was lost along the way at some point, but was included in the checkbox and constant references to it. But I don't know if it just kind of fell away after little while with,
You're
with
talking about
staff.
every staff report.
Yeah.
Every staff report that was written, there was a line in there that said this was on our strategic plan. There's nothing completed.
Yeah, just to keep the strategic plan objectives involved in all the discussion. So yeah, if we can go back to that, that'd be a great idea.
Excellent.
So, you know, good for Greg now?
Okay,
Mr. Lovett, please.
thank you. It's nice to see everyone again. The plan, at least from my side, is this. I'm doing number 3 and number 4, and then I'll kick it back to you on number 5. So on number 3, it's really just a review of the documents as they stand and whether you're happy with them or not. If so, we go forward to number 4. Number 4 is probably going to take the better part of the day. If I understand it correctly, I guess I'll find out. But really, again, what we're looking at is vision, mission, values. Are you still happy with those? If yes, then we'll carry on. And then the points that people have made, I think, are really central to the day, and that is, as you get down here, I think you're quite right, you need to refresh the list. And I also think you're quite right that you need to add some specificity to the list. And that is, what is it that you're trying to get to, and how are you going to measure performance along the way? So by the time we get to the end of the afternoon, if we get all the way there, I think it's a success. And we'll see how that goes. And again, to be clear, by the end of the afternoon, what we ought to have established is a draft. Right? So you'll still have more time to consider and think about it and revisit it if you like at that point. Does that work for everyone? So again, my only role, honestly, is facilitation, right? And so you own the content. My job is to try to steer you to the end. Where the end, again, is kind of getting the draft together. So let's wish each other luck along the way, right? The discussion is here largely, and as Matthew mentioned, everybody over here, right, is here for their expertise, right? So if it makes sense anywhere along the way, right, absolutely jump into the discussion. Good?
Absolutely.
Okay. So here we go, right? You may or may not recall that these are the pieces that you put together once upon a time, right? And again, the issue initially for us, right, is to think about vision, mission, values, where you see vision, mission, values, right? And I think most of you have this in front of you, and ask, whether those are still relevant or whether they need to be updated in some way. Right, and again, just to be clear in terms of what it is we mean by each of the elements of the plan, I put together this little lexicon over here. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Right, so again, what is it that the vision is intended to do, right? This is an aspirational goal, right? That is, this is what we aspire to be at some point in the future. What is it that the mission is intended to do, right? Well, the answer is that this is really the organization's reason to be, right? Values, this is the way that we will behave, right, in pursuit of the vision. And then certain pillars and priorities, this is where the discussion I expect will go. What are the kinds of things that need to be accomplished, and when and how would they need to be accomplished to get closer to the achievement of that vision? Right, so that's the goal, right? That's the framework. It's pretty generic, right, as most of you will know, that we're trying to work through as we go through the day. Everybody okay there? Good. So, here we go. Number 1, vision. Right, this is your vision. This is the vision that has been developed and has been in place for some time. So my question for you initially then is, like it? Do you still like it? Do you need to change it in any way? And one of the things I think you want to think about is that there ought to be a material reason to change these high-level sort of strategy statements. In other words, it's not the case typically that you're changing them with every iteration of the plan. It's absolutely the case that you're changing the supporting elements, that is the objectives and strategies, with every iteration of the plan. But you want to think carefully about whether these need to be changed. And if so, now's the time.
So, open it up, comments, questions on the vision?
Wait.
Wait.
I presume everybody read what Matthew emailed to us, I think it was yesterday, and that was the comments from our planner that was here the other night, and if memory serves me correctly, I forgot my iPad, and I was kind of hoping.
I have it here on another slide.
Okay, but I think she had a comment about the progressive word in there, did she not?
Yeah,
Yes, you did. I like the terms progressive, this is from her.
yes.
I like the terms progressive Riverside community. I would encourage council to illustrate or put forward further descriptive words behind this. Even if the wording was Riverside community, could be something to build upon in the town's branding strategy.
So,
Was she suggesting that in the vision itself?
Vision.
No, but to change, or to build on that elsewhere, or to, because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
what
an expert on this, but like, we end up with pretty long vision statements.
That's
I'm with you, I think that was a little bit, my read of it was that she liked it,
Yes,
right? And in fact, you know, she was saying, can you double down on it? I think elsewhere to answer your
that's
question.
right, I think so too, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's sort of how I read it, but,
Yeah.
sorry, Lee.
no, that's fine. I was unclear when I read it. That's what I got the first time. But then when she went on, I thought, well, maybe she thinks this should be by Julie or something. But I'm okay with that. It wasn't we did. I still think it is a mark.
Councilor Jansman and Councilor Burke.
I like it too.
I like the point that we have progressive in there because we want to move forward. And we can only move forward, right? We can learn from our mistakes and move forward. So I think that is encouraging when you have progressive in there, that we are doing something to enhance our community. So I do like it. I like the welcoming because we do want to welcome new industries and new residents and really make sure that they know that we are welcoming and to bring them into our community. So I still like it.
They can tell by our road signs where we're pointing a gun at them.
Welcoming to opponents.
I'm never gonna look at that the same way.
There are people that actually do find that.
Oh, I know.
You want us to come to your town, like, you get soldiers. Other discussion? Mike?
Well, I think if you read vision statements of corporations and businesses, they're much more elaborate in the fact that they're providing a business, a service, a commodity, or whatever. That's basically what we're presenting to people who come to town, drive through town, or whatever. And hopefully, they want to stay and look, you know, from the tourism aspect, stay and look around a little bit and examine more, see if it's a fit for them or not. So I think it says what we are and who we are.
Right?
I prefer to leave it like this. I think her comments were more about the mission statement than they were about the vision statement.
I was just thinking, she did say if we had one more, like another descriptor. So if we had, I was just trying to think of a descriptor to add to that. And I just don't know if I like we are dedicated. I don't know if we could, I noticed it's throughout, like in our mission, we have we continually. I don't know if it's redundant, like Lee says to have we are, because we know that's our vision statement. So I don't know if we need to have that kind of part to it.
So your thinking is you could potentially tighten it down a little bit further?
Dedicated to being, you don't have to have we are. To
Or
being welcoming.
even starting at how welcome.
Yeah, that's fine, that's exactly, I never liked the we are from, because this was actually, what, like a 4-hour process?
Oh,
Back in
truly.
2011, 2012, and we ended up with the we as a collective, and, but if we could, like, I'd love to start, it's the way we could start the sentence off with welcoming and progressive, and then lead into the rest, because that's the focus of it. So it's a small tweak, but yeah, it goes to your point, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
We could almost do dedicated to being actually a welcoming and dedicated progressive Riverside community. Just switching it up.
It just needs to be,
Right?
the only thing I would say is we gotta turn it into a proper sentence too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there, you know, but that's really good. But without, you know, we could be stuck on wordsmithing it all day. So just in the interest of getting into getting everybody's good with welcoming, progressive, Riverside community. So maybe we could wordsmith it and have staff and Greg, or maybe just bring us back something as a recommended with welcoming and progressive moved up front and dedicated, whatever. Just to emphasize the welcoming, progressive Riverside community aspect of it without kind of the we are. So it's a minor tweak, but it goes more to the point of what we are.
No, that's great.
Everyone okay with that? General parties, man?
Should we decide this today, what all of us want, instead of staff coming up with something?
So, no, I just don't wanna get into wordsmithing where 7 people are gonna write a sentence, because it's
No,
gonna take place.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like,
Well, this is coming back for full approval.
Yeah.
anyway.
Right.
All this is draft.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, this is my only point, but if the general priorities are good, we could agree on what this is gonna look like. So welcoming a progressive Riverside community, kind of moved up front, we'll move away from the we are, because we've got it elsewhere, if it remains a vision. So everybody good with that, is the priorities for the vision, but roughly, we're all happy with the priorities.
If I can just speak to, so after today, there's going to be 2 more opportunities to really take a slow second look at this. And so I know exactly what you're saying in terms of the vision, so what we're going to do is come up with a couple of options, and then you guys can vote on it and agree
Sure.
on what that might look like.
Okay, so we're all good in the vision then, the basic parameters are what we talked about, so we see some options there as we move forward. Great, so we'll move on from vision to mission. And open it up for comments. I remember we had the biggest discussion about how we were gonna put heritage and future in this way back when, what the order was, what was the, not this one on for quite a while as well. And we start off with the we again, which was a priority way back when. Personally, I've always found it, maybe it's a bit clunky, like I don't know if you have to say we because it's coming from the organization. So that's the only tweak, otherwise, I like it all, go around the table again, whatever, what's everybody think?
And just to sort of introduce the comments from your planners as well, it was really around what you intended when you use a quality of life, right? So,
Positive,
Right.
yeah. Because isn't that kind of like I know I was part of this discussion, and truly it took a week and a half. Like, just honest to God, it was, oh,
You actually wonder if the original part of this, though, I think the original.
No,
back when it was
yeah,
12, and that
but
was-
4 years ago, or
Yeah,
whatever. it
yeah,
was,
when we
no.
were up to-
But reflecting now, positive quality of life does sound rather awkward. And that's what
Everybody's-
Patty had said too, and I kind of thought, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's gonna promise
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah, exactly. And this is too where we have to be a little proactive. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate spot or more in the goal oriented. We have to keep up with the times. We have to be responsible. We have to somehow put the environment in there as something we are aware of and want to protect and want to, all that stuff, right? And so our action, if this is a general statement of what our actions are going to be, then we can't, I think it might be a place for this.
but, and so just, I mean, in convention at least, this one says, this is why we use this, right, full stop. Right, reason to be. Right, and you're quite right on the environmental piece, maybe that shows up a little bit further along, right, but this, just straight up, right, this is why we're here.
Should we put something in there about transparency? And I know we have we in a lot of the contexts, but we need to own that. This is our statement, right? We need to own that, and I think that's important to show the citizens that we are owning this mission. We are owning our values. We need to be able to tell them that.
Okay, and just on the transparency piece, you do have that in the next slide, right?
Right.
On the values, right? And so
Right.
it's the same piece, I think. I mean, you decide, right, where you want the kind of the themes to be focused maybe most effectively. But again, by convention at least, this one simply says, this is our reason to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there's an element of aspiration to it as well.
Yeah, and the aspirational one is probably more so the first one.
Yeah, but it still plays through here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you kind of have to. Right, if I could, I mean, to ask you to kind of think about this, like you did in the first one, and again, by the way, nice job in getting through that one as nicely as you did. Is there an opportunity to tighten this one further?
Are most organizations single sentence, is that what you're?
Well, I'd say 2 max, I think.
Right?
I think it's ironic that we use the word heritage, we use the photo of the museum, and yet we're quite divided on what to do with the museum. And certainly where expressions have been made about getting rid of the museum, you know, are we holding ourselves? I mean, it seems, here we're holding up heritage and yet we're not acting.
But it's one element of heritage. And it's, you know, is it a key element? You know, maybe, like you said, we always have a discussion, but yeah, I remember the heritage thing that was a big, a lot of discussion before too, so.
Just on the picture, I thought it was clever because you had old and new.
There's no hands in the clock in that picture.
Yeah.
It's timeless.
It's timeless.
I think it's kind of telling. I'm not talking too much about the wording there, but when you look at what's up on the TV, the very last word in that is future, and there's absolutely nothing in that picture relating to future. It's all in the past. And so much of what we do seems to be dragged down, in my opinion, by the past. And I know the past is very important here. We've got all our old buildings on the main street and so many heritage properties. And as chair of the Heritage Committee, I believe in that. But for us to have a mission statement like that, and if we had a folder and that was the picture that was in it, that is totally wrong. There's nothing there for the future. Absolutely nothing.
Well, and so just on that, I own the images. I was just trying to encourage your creativity, right? And so there's no intent for those to be for yours in any sort of document. They're just here to stimulate discussion.
Well, then, as far as going with the wording, this was never my favorite part of this whole process that we did, but it was a community effort, and we go along. But the continually move forward part, we don't continually move forward here. We take 2 steps forward, and very often we take 1 back. And it's quite often not our fault. It's something that happens. We spend money on something, and all of a sudden we get kicked, and that money is maybe not gone, but it's out there, and it may come back to us 10, 20, 30 years down the road, but it's been spent. So we don't continually move forward. We may strive to continually move forward, but we don't continually move forward. And there's very few people or very few organizations that do continually move forward. There are always fallbacks, always setbacks. Reset your clock and you start again. So the striving to me is very important.
Well, and just on your striving point, because this is where you were taking this as well on the vision, and so my question, I suppose, is that captured in the vision? Right, and if yes, right, then is it redundant here? And in other words, I just progressive get you where you need to go.
Mhm.
So if yes, right, then the same question is, is there an opportunity to tune this a little bit further? And it's really an optimization problem. I don't think you're blowing it up and starting again. It's really, can you tune it, can you tighten it a little bit?
So can we adopt the same basic format for the vision? We'll agree on some key points, and then we'll get a number of options back when we go look at this the next time, rather than trying to hammer down the exact wording today. Is everyone okay with that as the first step in the process? It'll move us along quite a bit quicker, and I think, and then when we have actual examples to look at, we can pick and choose. Leanne, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think we should definitely do something with it. Maybe put active community, right? Because we want to promote healthy living, right? We want to promote that, right? So, and we are an active community. We have lots of things going on. Recreation is one of the top things that we have in our community, in my opinion. We do want responsible leadership, for sure. Heritage, I totally agree with what Ray's saying, because we don't, but there's other aspects. like Mayor Todd said. But we do need to do something with this. I do like invest in our future because it is important to invest in our future, so definitely need to do something with that.
Great points. Anyone else? Teresa?
The words I would want it kept in there is a little bit, very much what Leanne was saying. Responsible leadership. Leadership is a key word in there because whatever we, within our ability, we're gonna be responsible, and we're gonna be transparent, and we're gonna, and that leadership has to remain. Where I agree with Ray and Leanne, heritage is a sub pillar, like one of our pillars perhaps, or one of our, but it's just one of many things. So I'm okay with heritage going out, investing in our future is a game changer, as well as the word leadership. So transparent, accountable, responsible, any of those words that are, is what I would want us to see.
One I would suggest as well, just my own perspective, is growth in there somewhere. Because we talked about that the other night about in terms of our OB with that population projections, it shows us going up virtually nothing in 25, 30 years.
Would you not think invest in our future? Does that
I think,
suggest-
I like the word growth just
Okay,
as on its own, just for myself, if it can be worked in there, simply because we, like most of the strategic plan, it's about growth in the industrial park. We've got to talk about residential growth, so population, downtown, and so on. So to me, growth would be the one addition I would really like, along with the others you guys have suggested.
And just as a follow-up, positive quality, that's kind of a given, right? So I'm okay with it if it goes down to the one leadership surrounded statement, and I do agree on growth too.
Wait.
I'd like to go back to the we for a minute. We, together, we, and our. So, what is the we? Is we the community, or is we the leadership of the community? In other words, the we that are in this room. What's that? What's that supposed to be? Because,
Municipal government, town hall, it's all of us, the collective.
so you're not talking about the community, you're talking about we that are here. In other words, the administration, the government.
So
I'd
Is
say,
that- is
I'd
that-
say it's both.
I would view it from the context of, this is your strategic plan. So right on the second page, it's going to say council strategic plan. And so any statement that is made coming out of this, then the we refers to you as a council.
Actually, I wouldn't entirely agree, because it's the organization's mission statement, that will reflect on you guys as well, that's the entire organization, we set the priorities, but you guys follow them.
But it just but
Hopefully,
construction of the sentence itself,
yeah.
I would view it from that perspective, is that you're, as council, explaining what you're trying to achieve. That's just from a wording perspective.
It's actually really, that's one question
It's a
we
good
have, it's a really good discussion, because it'll mean different things to different people too, depending on the reader. So,
Okay.
sorry about
If I could just add on to that a little bit, since we now, I guess, I don't know if we're in agreement, but we sort of, here we are with the we again. The we is us, in other words, us people here. This is our mission statement as we see it for the town of Prescott at this time, or at least when that was done. And 10 years from now, if there are a total different group of people, that statement may be totally different, because they may see their mission statement as different from ours, depending on what happens in the next 10 years. But together we provide responsible leadership. In the 9 years that I've been here, I've seen the leadership, and in many cases not being very responsible. I've seen votes taken here that did not come out, in my opinion anyway, the way they should have, and history in later years indicates that they should never come out that way, that it costs us a lot of money. So we provide responsible leadership. See, first question is, do we, if it's the community, provide responsible leadership in their vote? They elect us to do that, to provide the responsible leadership. If you look at it the way we're looking at it now, do we here provide responsible leadership? That's different. We can do what we think is right as each vote comes up, but I don't always see the votes taken based on the facts in front of us and all of the situation taken into account. I've seen votes taken based on personal animosity, so to speak, a variety of things that have nothing to do with the item here, and that's not responsible leadership. So I think, in my opinion, that needs an alteration somehow.
Teresa?
I do agree with you, we have to move on, because we're gonna just get, because I 100% disagree with what Lee just said. We are responsible, we do take our job seriously, we are elected officials, and with the information at hand, we make decisions accordingly. Hindsight might prove us wrong, but at the time, it's the evidence in front of us. So, I'm sticking with the responsible, transparent, accountable leadership theme for our staff to come back with.
So can I just kind of take a look? So from my understanding, we like responsible leadership, we like invest in our future, and in my mind, to support growth. And then kind of taking a look at removing heritage, because I think it touches on elsewhere. And then positive quality of life, that's my only kind of question is, do we speak to something from having an active community? And when I mean active community, I mean volunteerism, I mean us providing services, that type of thing.
We haven't heard that much from this side of the table yet, so before we summarize, I'd just like to give, Ray's talked a little bit, Mike and Gory. Sorry, I just want to get them in before we summarize.
Well, I'm listening to what's being said, and we can put a lot in there, or we can trim it down and put a little bit. It really doesn't matter. And is it going to be a tourist brochure, or is it going to be something that's part of a business package? So we kind of have to lean one way or the other if we're going to, shrink it a bit.
My thoughts are, some of the points are excellent, that we want to keep in there. You want to keep in there about the future. You want to have heritage mentioned, you want to have leadership. I don't think we need to say that we're providing responsible leadership. Responsible leadership is good, because that's what we're doing. Yeah, I'd like to reword the positive quality of life, or improved quality of life, or improved, economic and environmental health. I would include the, being more green. But talking about future and maybe technology somehow, because there was that announcement about getting internet in our area, and trying people working from home, maybe we become a bit of a community for that. So we're looking into the future, right?
Yeah, that's a good point to tie in. It makes future mean something rather than just like a buzzword. Ray, did you have anything? Okay, so Matthew, you were summarizing it really good. So we talked about continually move forward as maybe something we look at. Positive quality of life. It's more of a kind of wishy-washy statement, what I'm hearing around the table, so we can look at that. We have questions about heritage, whether we put it in or not. So possibly when we see some examples back, we could see some with heritage worked in and some without. Is that okay? Is that what I'm hearing on heritage? I've heard different things on the table. I just want to make sure it's captured. Is everyone okay with different examples there? And responsible leadership, or some wording in that indicates that invest in future is key. Something environmental, growth, something with future that would indicate embracing new technological. Maybe that can even work into the environmental somehow, because there's some things there. And the we has been questioned a couple of times too. Maybe we could move away from the we, because it is in some ways redundant, because it is coming from and active community, sorry, the active community. Oh, and the other one I threw out myself is, and maybe we don't need this with active and growth, but youth or something to you know, to embrace, I don't know, there's a lot of buzzwords here now, so it's leaving a lot of work for staff, but maybe Greg with some consultation on what other communities do there. I mean, we're not really reinventing the wheel here with this. There's countless communities with pretty much the same, but that's the other concern. The only concern I would have is, are we coming up with something that's so generic it doesn't reflect who we are and what our reason is for being. That's the one concern, because these are all pretty, you know.
Can I respond to that?
Please.
On the notion of the mission being, you know, somewhat generic, it probably will be somewhat generic, because everybody, you know, who's in the business of providing municipal government is in the business of providing municipal
Pretty much
government.
the same thing.
Right, but the thing that will distinguish you quite clearly is the vision. My other point to look for, right, on the council priorities piece, I think is this. Right, if you go here, I mean, largely, as I said at the beginning, right, these things, right, if we call them kind of 1, 2, 3, right, will be relatively unchanging. Now, having said that, I mean, this is a great discussion because there's certainly an opportunity to tune them, right? But in terms of council priorities, largely those that become those pillars. In other words, if the vision, you know, by definition, is a stretch goal for the organization, then it ought not be, you know, entirely achievable in the short run. It ought to always be out there a little bit. Right, and so the pillars might change on a council by council by council basis, right? And those are the things clearly that you own, right? These are the things that we want to do to get closer to achievement of the vision. And that's where the bulk of the discussion is probably going to go. But these things, you know, can live sort of, you know, beyond councils for the most part.
So are you comfortable with what we talked about, or you're seeing this?
Well, absolutely, I think it's fantastic.
Wandering off a garden path, right,
Yeah.
so we're good, so. Okay, is everyone, any other comments on vision or mission before we move off this? We're okay with, we'll leave it up to our consultant and staff, just kind of wordsmith a few things and bring us back multiple. Matthew, is there any other questions on priorities and so forth and what we had?
Oh, and when we get to values, I think, think about the things that you just mentioned in terms of technology, environmental, things like that, because I think we can capture it perhaps easier there in the values, and then use that as kind of building. So again, if we kind of reiterate, start with the vision, dedicated to a welcoming, progressive riverside community, move to the mission and being able to revise that a bit. But I think really where, in my mind, looking at the values, meaning saying, looking at new technology and new ways of doing things to provide the service better, might be something that really captures what a couple of the things that you're kind of hearing. So that's just my point. But yeah, I made some notes.
Yeah, no, that's great, because we can include a lot of that here. Just the mission, if we can kind of distill what we talked about into a few key phrases, sentences. Maybe there's other, you know, corporations, businesses that provide good examples. If anybody else around the table comes back with anything they really like, as well, please, you know, send them on to staff and we'll look at them so we can wordsmith before the next meeting and get an idea of what we can look at. So we all going to move on? All right.
Item number 3 then, values. All right, so a couple of comments, right, that again, these are yours, right, and, you know, different organizations do them in different ways. In other words, I mean, you can put some supporting sort of descriptors right in there if you like, right, you can leave them at the level that they're at the moment. Your consultant didn't like the word self, right, so you can have a discussion about that. Right? And so again, you know, and is there an opportunity, as Matthew says, to work in, you know, some of the themes that have come up already in this discussion.
Okay, so open that up for discussion of the values. Councilor Burton.
Thank you. I would like to see the self-serve out of there. I don't think it serves purpose to be in there anymore. Integrity and accountability, definitely. Leadership and teamwork. Serve excellence. I don't really think that needs to be in there, or maybe change those words. Transparent definitely, communication and committed to growth is definitely something that needs to be still in there, so. And maybe we could add something about the technical issues, or technical moving forward, or technology, or something like that, and yeah.
Thank you. What else? Lee?
Well, this one, going back to what I said before, it seems to me to be more the community rather than the we that are in the room. And is that what we intend from this value? Is this the values that we are extending to our community, or is this the values that we are purporting to represent and extol here?
Corporate values aren't municipality values. Greg, did you?
No, I agree, right, and again, that by convention at least, this is how we will behave, right? And I think that we, you're quite right, as corporate, this is how we will behave in pursuit of the vision. Right? We will do these things, and by implication, at least we won't do those things.
Well, if that's the case, then how can we behave a commitment to growth?
But, and you can change the language, I mean, that's a different issue, right? But really what you're asking yourself is, what do we value from a behavior point of view, in terms of how we're going to go about our activities?
Other comments? Gord?
Thank you. I think transparency is a key value. I think one thing that I would like to see up there is fiscal responsibility, because that's a value that we can all share with that. Service excellence, if we could expand on that, like, just adding another word to each one of these. You can even put integrity, accountability, and transparency together as one. Commitment to growth and like future development, maybe you could put, just a couple of words in there. Doesn't tighten it, but it doesn't make it too wordy. You know what I'm trying to say?
I remember, if I may, when we first did this, and you were at the front of the same room, I think it was, and you had the thing we were doing, and then as the day went on, we kept shortening and shortening and shortening to get down to this point, and now it seems that we're going the other way, and I'm not saying that's wrong, I just think that it's.
Yeah, I remember too, but I remember our list was about this long at one point. But what's the magic number? There's no magic.
Other comments on the values? Teresa?
I agree with a lot of what's been said. This is where we can capture like almost adjective to how we're going to achieve our goals with the mission and vision in mind. So perhaps here is where commitment to growth and development to the future, like, is where we could get the whole IT environmental flavor in there. I don't know how we would do that, Matthew, but yeah.
But that was your point from earlier, right? That's, we need to get it in somewhere, so.
And leadership and teamwork is a little bit redundant because it's already been mentioned in our mission. So I'm not exactly sure if that's needed anymore. I like the transparency added to the integrity and accountability because it's all one and the same, service excellence. If we're gonna hopefully take this mission and vision and have it bought in by the employees, that would be kind of valuable to have. I mean, we can't make them buy in, but it's our job to hopefully have them buy in, right? So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Other comments? Right, anything?
No, I think the first line could be strengthened, and as Corey said, adjectives added to the bullet points. I think it's more important we live by the bullet points than it is
can I just push on that? So your, because your point was the first line could go, right? And yours is the first line could be
It could be
enhanced.
strengthened, yeah.
So in terms of direction, for follow-up, what's the right place to go?
Well, we've actually heard ways to expand, 'cause Gloria mentioned fiscal responsibility, which for me ties in to integrity and accountability, so that's where that, could be added, or it exists in a separate line. I mean, I don't know, integrity and accountability is kind of key to just speaking for myself, but I would get the fiscal responsibility added in as a component of that as well, because that ties in with the account.
Well, I agree. I guess my question is this, because I like the discussion, and so probably that extends the list a little bit. Right, but the question I think is that intro line, does it live going forward or not?
Do we need it?
Right, and we don't have to tune it right now, but I think that's the question, is the guidance going forward is, does it have to be there or not?
Sorry, Greg, I jumped in.
Oh, sorry.
The first bullet.
I would say we need to just pride in the community. And then the bullet points underneath
Mhm.
is definitely the statement that we want to,
Nice.
live by, right?
Mhm.
Because we have pride in the community, we have integrity and accountability and fiscal responsibility, leadership and transparent and committed to growth. I think that says it all.
Perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't need to self-serve.
Yeah, self and services, yeah. My whole question on that is pride and community, because all the others can be related to direct actions.
Mm-hmm.
Pride and community is, would that be better served, community pride in the mission and the vision somewhere? Because that's really what that's what it is, it shows that we're proud of the community. As a value, I mean, I'm not opposed to leaving it there, but the others all relate to action, like service excellence can go down to how you were treated at the counter, leadership and teamwork is staff leadership administratively, our leadership and teamwork on the council table, transparent communications, open meetings, so on, commitment to growth, could be growth strategies for active and residential, and service excellence, same thing, integrity, accountability is, so those are all actions. Pride and community is not.
Well, I agree, right, and so I like what both of you are saying, right, is that, but maybe it's something like this, right? Pride in community is evident in these actions.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't it create the action? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have pride in the community, and these are the actions because we have pride in the community.
Yeah, underpins everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you agree as a group in terms of the marching orders for, the next few weeks, I mean, is that the right theme to take away in terms of how this section gets crafted?
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't hear any dissenters, that sounds good, because the pride and community then informs everything else. If everyone's okay with that, self and service is not, that doesn't sound like it has any edge around the table, so if we could just concentrate on pride and community through the following values or the following. So, Mike is the only one that has.
Well, it's all good stuff. I guess being the pragmatist in the group, I look at leadership and teamwork, and if somebody phones up here and only talks to one person, do they see leadership or do they see the result of leadership? It's a good advertising point. I just don't know if and it certainly fits under our values, but it's sort of the odd man out here because people don't see people here.
Got it. The only thing you might think of it, sometimes people do this, is, as you know, is kind of tied down in terms of a performance management system, right? And so that would be the linkage to the operations.
How well the whole thing runs.
Yeah.
Okay, other comments? So we're gonna try to capture that, so self and service, not a lot of fans around the table, pride and community, can exist going forward as pride and community is evident in the following values, whatever the sentence is.
Just as we're thinking, can we say like pride and respect in community? Is that too much, or is that not on the same? Pride and respect in community through these values? Something like that?
I would say respect, and like if you're proud of something, it is inherently respected. No, it's a good point, because it does show that, but, yeah, we can try to work that.
Well, and in terms of the draft coming back, I mean, certainly lots of organizations have, respect, right, as a bullet point here, right, for example. Right?
And maybe that can go under like communicate, if we're gonna move transparency, we can put respect for communication.
Yeah, that's excellent, so that shows them, prompt response from staff on tax queries.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah. But, the only thing about that with, and I'm not saying it should exist in the values, but the standards today too, for example, with communication, where people expect immediate responses over Christmas, 15-minute responses over social media. I'm not saying we're gonna put something in there to define that, but it is something else we all live with too, is the age of the instant. So, just showing that respect doesn't mean that we're on the clock 24/7.
But it does mean establishing standards, right? And so that's the point that we were having here, right? But that's not part of this document, right?
Yeah, no, not at all, it just leads to, another
Oh,
question.
create expectations.
That's the only thing, but, so self and service is Goner, pride and community exists in the opening. We talked about adding, fiscal responsibility, service excellence, we talked about maybe trying to fill that out a bit more for a definition. Leanne, you did mention that, right, on service excellence, maybe trying to
Yeah.
broaden it a little bit.
Yep.
or define
Changing
it
the
a
wording
little more.
around, yep.
So we're good with everything else on here. I think I captured, what did I miss?
Future,
Oh, yeah,
future development.
future development. And, the environmental thing as well, should probably, if we're gonna embrace like any sort of green, we should have a separate bullet point for environmental and care for the community, how we want to phrase it. So, anything else? Matthew, is that,
No, I think I have a couple of ideas of how we can kind of bring some of them together to come down to kind of 5. But yeah, I think when we talk about service excellence, maybe it's talking about efficient service excellence, employing use of technology and new ways of doing business.
Well,
sure.
So, just, it might get a little bit more work in some of those to incorporate a couple of concepts and ideas, but at the end of the day, when we go to make decisions going forward, those are the things we should be able to come back to and say, is this decision fiscally responsible? Is this employing the best use of technology or a new method of doing it? And so really, for me, becomes part of when we're writing reports, making recommendations, and you're making decisions, those are the things we should measure against, in my mind. So.
Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. My only point is that this is very, very short, quick, 2-word bullet points. If we go to like short sentences, we should just make sure they're all short sentences rather than bullet pointed, just for readability. That's the only,
Back to that grammar.
It just makes it a little more readable for someone looking.
I'll make sure that we put the.
And the right commas.
Thanks for that. I haven't said that yet. Like, Greg, is that,
I think that's fantastic.
okay, so we're going to move on from values, we're all good?
Holy cow.
So values,
That's very impressive. I mean, one of the things that we were a little bit anxious about at the beginning was, how effectively we could get through those big 3, and we did that really quite nicely, which means that, the remainder of the day is really devoted to objectives and strategies, right? Given that this is, at a high level, the vision that people seem to be comfortable with, what are the 4, the 5, or whatever the number is of verticals, right, that you need to be working within, right, to be able to get to that vision. And so that's the next piece of the discussion, and largely that's the big piece of the entire day. So it's your day. It is now a good chance. It's logically in terms of the work. This is a good chance for a break.
yeah, I can turn it over to somebody else if you want to. You guys.
Or do you want to push forward while you're here?
What's that?
Or would you prefer to push forward while you're here?
I wouldn't mind, but you're right, it is a good time for a break, but the thing down, it's at 11.
Yeah, got it.
So want to move a little forward, but I'm fine with turning the meeting over to you.
Well, why don't we push forward and we'll break when you leave?
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to commit everyone else to that, but sorry, it's just Special Olympics, they do this every year. But I did want to say also, if anybody has anything addition they think of, please email it in to Matthew and staff and try to incorporate it as we're moving forward, because obviously this is going to try to get a lot of hard work done today, but this isn't the final kick at the can.
Perfect. Everybody good there? So again, recognizing that, you know, the top three things will be revised, but also recognizing that the vision is more or less intact. Right? The vision is, you know, by definition, again, the aspirational goal for the organization. Right? This is what we aspire to be, right? This is what we aspire to be able to do. Right? If that's the case, then what are the one or the two or the three or the five sort of, you know, categories of activities, right, that need to be developed in order to get as close as possible to achievement of the vision? Right? That's the exercise for the lion's share of the day. Everybody okay with that? Right, and so again, in terms of history, right, you know, these are the categories that previous groups had developed, right, and Matthew walked you through kind of the major projects under each of these categories. Right, you've also seen commentary from your planner saying, you know, is there an opportunity, for example, to get it from 5 to 4? Well, that's a decision for you to make. Or you might get it from 4 to 3, right, but that's really the next piece, right? So the way in which we'd like to do that, if you agree, right, is to give you a chance to kind of, you know, stretch your thinking, right, and here's the process. Right, I have the dreaded sticky notes, right, what you get to do is give us, let's say, your top 10, right, and it doesn't matter if it's 11, it doesn't matter if it's 9, right, your top 10 projects you believe, right, need to be accomplished over the next 3 to 5 years in order to get the organization closer to the vision. Right, recognizing that, as you pointed out earlier, I mean, some of the ones on the previous list go forward, and some of them are now.
Great, detailed. Is that something as basic as industrial park development, or is
Initially, right? Thank you for the
so
question. Right? Yeah.
you want it very broad at first? Okay.
And so here's the way it's going to go, right? Is that here's some, right here others, right? So take your time, right? You know, write out your list. Right? What I'd ask you to do.
So taking the top 10 on this one?
Out of your head.
Oh, wow.
Right, and some of those may be on that list as well. Right, but here's the process, right? You're going to get them onto those notes, and we're going to throw them up onto the board, and then we're going to try to group them in for labels for the groups.
One idea per page.
Yeah, perfect, yes, one per page, right? And at this point, simple is fine, right? We can flesh them out as we go through the day.
You can elaborate later, just like,
Yes.
yeah.
You want identity on these?
Well, we know you have the pink one.
I have a quick one. But though I do have Lee.
I'm not
For the
Italian.
pink
I'm not, I am green, so,
one? Okay.
for,
Okay, so take your time, though, and again, once you have your list together, and each independent idea deserves its own note, just throw them up here somewhere, and then as a group, right, we'll try to find a way to make them, you know, find some themes.
Make sure we can read it.
Were you looking at me when you said that?
Absolutely not.
Looking at the doctor.
No, I was looking at Ray, actually. What?
Which is good.
Ray.
But Demopolis had the horrendous thing, did you remember? And it was always,
Squiggle and a dot.
Robert, when he was reading something, and he paused.
Yeah.
And we are putting down, we are putting down things that are already in the way, so if I want to put like update official plan.
No, absolutely, in other words, I mean, if you believe, you're right, if you believe it should live in the new document, then absolutely, yeah.
Just to make sure we follow through, like I said.
And again, 10 is not a magic number, I mean, if your list is 20, it's 20, right? Yeah, well, I know what I was thinking, the thing that you and I agreed on was whether this was a vision exercise. It's really, there's time, it looks like it's And it's okay, but in fact, it's really quite encouraging if the same point shows up in several stats. I probably should have said this here at the beginning as well, but if you could, think about the distinction between sort of strategy and tactics, right? So and this is the point Matthew made earlier, I mean, think about the things that will be done as a matter of course at the operating level, and those probably don't belong on this list. So things, for example, like people said earlier, that you might hand off to a committee, let's say, well, right, the things that the committee might undertake, right, are things probably that don't live at this level. Yes, and then we'll try to group them about what we can. And that's, and this might work, but this is your room, not mine. If we throw it up on one of the painted walls, will it damage the paint?
No.
No? If you want to do that, it might be more effective, and then, once we find the clusters, right, we'll throw them up here.
Yeah.
And try that here. Here's your old list. I don't know whether it's large enough or not, but that's what you have from the previous document.
You don't have to identify yourselves. Don't worry at this point about the groupings, or because everybody gets a chance to manage the groupings.
He sounds angry.
I think he's testing wall.
Yeah, for studs. I'm the one looking for. Don't worry about that.
See one of the back of my head.
The event starts at 11, but I should be there about 10 to.
We just cut the page from that.
Legible.
I'm just joking.
I just got this from one of those. Can you just talk me through them and tell me which ones are?
Greg, did you want them up there?
No, up here. Thank
Oh,
you.
Put them on, and do it for the last.
Okay.
Put them together. Because it's gonna be
So
so.
tell me, highlight the clear, put them together just so.
it travels your distance.
Okay.
The second one on the front of the one.
I put 10 on 2, I wrote small.
Oops.
I got lots of input, lots of input. Derek? There was speculation that they should appoint him as Governor General. Prince Harris is in the news or something? Sorry, I'll.
Yeah, that way it comes off British taxpayers because our.
No, just for.
But we're not. I know, to say that financially independent. Okay.
It'd be nice if we got there.
You had
About 95% of this money comes from that. Sorry, I don't know what you call that exactly. No, I know, but he's still not spending. He's spending just what he's bought.
But they're already financially independent.
Well, they should be, yeah. They should be.
You're already done.
You did.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I'm like,
Oh, you're well, sorry. Yeah, financially.
We didn't put them on individual. We didn't put them on individual things, huh?
Throwing out there.
But I'm missing one. It's probably until my.
Yeah, I'm not committing yet. I'm cheating, I'm cheating. Yeah, exactly.
Two more.
Excellent. These need to be on separate sheets.
Oh, so we just need to.
Thank you.
Oh. How do you know that? We're good. I don't disappoint.
Fast forward.
You know the story? He was a chemist. He was trying to separate the two because he was you got to take this phone out of that because he wanted to be able to write the things. That's what it came.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Where was it
That's
from?
3M.
3M.
Yeah.
I knew it was 3M.
Yeah.
So in the States. Yeah, wow.
It's a great little story.
Yeah.
You got Floyd Lane in the store this morning. You got Floyd Lane in the store today.
I know, actually, just shut it down for 3 days.
Do you want to say it?
I'm supposed to be in Toronto today, but I went yesterday.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I remember you were saying.
Yeah, I think you should.
No, these are nice.
Hello, do you guys have ideas? You guys,
I think so. I kind of.
it's just.
Tell me.
Okay.
I'm hopeful I get an opportunity.
Well, you should.
Greg, Gordon and I were just talking, could there be a section that
Please do.
for downstairs?
Oh, it's your day.
Okay.
Understanding at the end of the day that you own that, but I think you're right to say, you know,
But
I
they
mean,
were just plant seeds.
this is where you get your contract, right? So if you're missing anything, well, nobody knows better than they do.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
it's a resource that's here,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And especially if it's a session that's.
Just your vision. Your vision. What you want to see.
If you were sitting
What do you
here,
do?
what would you write?
For the lower.
The project.
Anything.
For the lower.
Yeah, like the roads.
Yeah, for these things.
Gotcha.
Yes,
No, he's right.
I was creating friendly competition. Yeah.
Dana, Sean, and Katie, I think they'd like us to do our own too. So do you post it somewhere? Interesting. No, we're good. You got some?
yes.
Here. Our staff, okay, we're good. Okay. How, you guys can see everything. Just put them
Yeah, we
anywhere.
haven't grouped them yet, that'll be the next step.
Yep,
Just anywhere.
anywhere you want.
you're the closest thing to an expert on the science. And I don't know if I really attest how you do.
Bring something.
Nobody said I should have any coffee, so I'm being very careful on using.
Well, I think they probably
I think they let me have coffee.
All right, who moved my stickers?
You have my,
You.
station.
Just rewrote them.
Right?
You made them kind of.
I'm used to using, doing most of it, something, I don't know.
Did you get an A in stickers in school?
They're all over the place. I tried to separate them out.
Yeah, and the bylaws do that. Your day is fun.
Well, I would, but I would need to have permission from the whole group. I was, I don't know, and I started passing on to, there's some
Thanks for doing that.
certain things that I put forward, right, that you know, all of a sudden, we should have.
So we are looking at new pillars, right?
Yeah.
And these are out this
If
morning.
they're looking at adjusting
Outside.
pillars, we're just deciding we're moving.
Is that right?
Not the pillars,
That's,
the lower level.
And even this, if you get all the actions and decide a pillar needs to
I thought it
change,
was
that's
gonna
why
be-
you're changing the pillar.
Oh, no. It was a little foggy. but it's like that.
I just don't remember.
Thinking about break.
Wow, you guys are prepared.
We're gonna put 20 seconds in it too. Perfect.
And they were saying about that meeting, this one. You're right, there's no meeting. No, you? No.
Greg, are you no longer associated with Sigmund?
Oh, yeah.
Or was it me?
Still both.
I thought it was. I thought it was. For something that would be done.
Oh, what?
All right, well, that's the greatest, obviously, so this is through somebody, or is it just you?
Me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's not through Sigmund. Correct, I was just checking. Okay, well, I guess maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm actually teaching a course in strategy. As it happens.
So we still, starting rate, or is that
Yeah, I will for another 2 weeks.
another 2 weeks?
I wasn't sure. Your years was the cutoff or?
Have fun. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Greg. Who's got
Squeezed in there. Have fun.
Yeah.
When's lunch, noon?
Yeah, we're picking it up.
I cheated too.
Well, I keep thinking,
I know.
I made a list the other day, so it's like, oh, I got forgetting stuff.
That's what I'm interested in.
And the talking to Mike about it, he's got an empty one up there.
And there were, were you here when that was an issue we were came up with,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I thought so.
Gary Dewar?
Yeah. What's new?
Not too much, just so he's in Kingston, he's
Yeah.
a manager at
Or
FedEx.
something said about it, not
I will have to drop in and say hello.
Yeah.
authority to be on council.
I thought I recognized him, but I know you were here before.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I said I can't, right? I know you were here before. I was like, I don't know. Yeah,
What did he do?
Way back when?
Yeah, it's true.
yeah.
Corporation owned everything. So he took
Are you in
1%
Rockville?
share.
You're in Kingston too? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Corporation and his own name.
Same kind of town, just a bit more to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love Kingston.
Yeah, it's under an hour probably from here, almost exactly.
I think Bernie,
Yeah.
when it
Sounds
happened to
good.
Bernie Courier, he just let it go.
So what do you do, is it here, the conflict if you're going, would go Ottawa versus Kingston, or how would that work?
I think there was another one.
Depends on what's going on, right?
Yeah,
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 Which
I
side
think,
of Ottawa, really?
yeah, I suppose, yeah.
yeah, we tend to go to Ottawa more because our daughter's there
Yep.
as well, but, we also have a lot of friends in Kingston too, so it's kind of nice to
It's
go.
almost a coin flip, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know whose house was sold this week?
Who's?
Whose house was sold this week? The oldest continually inhabited house by one family in my neighborhood, Bud Johnson's house.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The sign went up, I think, one day and it's all sold.
Oh, that was the one that's there.
Their street.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, one day, yeah.
I saw it one day and it was sold on it, and I noticed when I was getting my coffee in the morning,
When I looked at Gerd Dale's on Linda Street,
yes,
they were taking offers and opening them 3 or 4 nights later at 6 o'clock.
yeah,
And they already had 4 or 5 offers in.
yeah.
It is still,
Yeah.
it did.
So, and since they moved in pretty quick, whoever took it had a cash offer as opposed to selling their own.
Where did the?
Yes.
I don't know.
Bert's with their daughter out in the park. I think it's in the park somewhere.
Okay.
Or the other offer.
Okay. That would be not Mark.
Of course, yeah. Everyone worked for social services.
I was, well,
Well, anyway, maybe she got
That's what it is.
Yeah, but why not?
I thought it was the dental assistant, but it's
That's Mark.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think she was reading.
Yeah, you need to read these things.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the east end of Maple sort of down.
Okay, that's Mark.
Yeah.
Are you going to chair the meeting, right?
I guess.
Doesn't mean you have to switch sheets, but.
Yeah, we don't hurry. You should be able to break for lunch.
That's how much we need
She,
Not on the table.
Michael.
someone was holding
Here,
down.
get it.
Oh, I might hit somebody with it. Let's just go with it.
Just keep a firm grip, don't let it out of your hand.
All set.
Still do stickers.
Yeah, just make sure I
We have-
read them.
We have to.
I'm cheating.
Did you see
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. Like, yeah, we had it at
How did Dave make it?
Which place?
Yeah. Yeah.
The one he thought he had to do.
No, the bins were there yesterday, 3/4 full.
No, she was.
There was a problem with our light in the basement, which, you know, just adds to some more of the mess.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for
No, the
her.
residents.
She's gonna understand when you buy a house that's
That's true.
Yeah.
a semi.
So,
Well, you always worry about that sort of stuff, so in all honesty, any of her costs that she's had, I've told her it's both civil, but it's also an insurance company. If it's big enough, you talk to your insurance company.
You got two sides of the sword.
You got two sides of the sword that you can either deal with one way or the other, but I would probably, and also, Matthew was kind enough to find for me the connection, needs available to help people.
Unity something?
Something or other, he sent it to me, and again, I don't know if it'll work in this case, but it's another, but the big thing is, it's getting done. Dave was very impressed when he came back how much work had been done on it.
That's good.
So I'm not saying that'll continue, but
I asked him the night before, kids not here. He says,
he was getting nervous.
he said, the first hour tomorrow morning will tell me where I'm at.
And as I told him, I said, I'm not being mean, but if they don't, if they're not jumping on Friday, by Monday, we have to meet. Okay, it becomes a life safety issue for the house next door. It's not that I.
Just in terms of managing our way through the day, just a quick reminder that the camera
It's specific to her though, it's community as well. I mean, I'm more worried about the person immediately. The reality.
Sounds like it's headed in the right
It
direction.
seems like it.
Hi, Katie.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't.
Okay, sports fan, we're okay, rolling in, please.
Thank you. It's a good thing you reminded me. You see?
A lot of good.
Basically, that's right. So it looks like we're almost, there's one more batch coming in, and here it comes, nice and tight. Once everything is up onto the ball, the next step will be this, right, that everybody, it'll be a bit of a free-for-all, right, but everybody has an opportunity to arrange and rearrange, right, the sticky notes in a way that makes sense to them. In other words, really what we're after here is commonality. What are the groupings that seem logical to you, right? And then, you know, depending upon how that goes, we might then be able to confer some labels for each of the groupings. If we have to battle it out, then we'll battle it out.
What are you gonna use?
But once we have the groupings, right, we'll take those and put them here, and that's where the labels will go.
Why don't you put headings on some of these and then we'll just put the stickers?
Well, it's a wonderful question, and because I think we want to infer the headings from the groupings rather than to force the headings.
Okay, but I figured if you looked at 4 or 5 of them.
Sorry?
I figured if you looked at 4 or 5 different groups, you could figure that out.
Well, I think that's, but you own it, right, so you get to do that.
All right.
Are we gonna put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Well, potentially, right, but it might not work, like you agree. Right, so again, just, it's a good question, just in terms of process management. The way that it's going to go is that everybody gets a chance to say, you know what, I mean, you know, these look very much like those, and those look very much like those. So then we get probably 3 or 4 or 5 groups, whatever the number turns out to be, right, depending upon what you perceive to be the themes, right, then we can generate the label based on what's in the grouping. Right, but again, on the question, which is a great question, we don't want to force the categories, right? Let the categories emerge bottom up. Okay, so it's all yours. I'll move the chairs out of the way, right? And then, you know, if you want to throw an elbow, that's your call. But the job is really this. I mean, and there's going to be a fair bit of redundancy, which is okay. In fact, it's a good thing, right? But try to find a way that makes sense to you, and you're going to move them somewhere, and someone else is going to move them somewhere else. That's okay too. Right, and it will settle out where it chooses to settle out. Okay?
Good. Are we doing the whole wall or we're gonna?
Whole wall.
The whole wall?
Okay. And it's not one at a time, it's all far when ready.
Council members go up.
Sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, so what you're basically saying is we're going to pull out the similarities of everybody's
Correct.
sticky notes, right?
Correct, right, and so
So if somebody's talking about recreational complex and you see that in 5 different spots,
Put them all together,
then we're gonna put those all together.
And then I'm gonna come along and change them to something.
yeah. Exactly right. And so what we're trying to get to is something that looks like this.
Right,
But we don't know what the names are because we don't know what you wrote.
right. Okay.
Okay?
And we move them here.
Now, move them there for now. Once we have an agreement, then we'll move them here.
All right,
Okay, so move them and move them again and move them again until you're happy.
all right.
Okay, Teresa, you go up and then Ryan and I go up and change everything.
Hey, where you go?
Ladies first.
No, everybody goes at once. Hi, staff.
And the easy place to begin is just finding your
No,
done.
this is more council.
Share. Fair. Share.
By the time they get done, none of the stickies will stick anymore.
I'm just worried about paint.
Well, no, I'm not too worried about paint. Oh, yeah.
My brother-in-law's father was one of the inventors.
Oh, at 3M? Okay, cool. 3M is the most amazing company when you consider that the 3M stands for the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Services. And they started out as a sand pit that had no economic value. Yep, they bought it thinking they were gonna sell sand, then realized they couldn't because it wasn't very good. And then one of them figured out to create sandpaper with the center pit. And that's how they got going down the hall.
Wow, and the drag just showed a neat sort of the history of the postage stamp, which I think
Yeah.
is such a neat story.
Yeah.
I find fascinating.
That's a great, wonderful thing.
No, like I said, that whole corporation is just amazing.
That kind of makes it, you have to think of the genesis. How did they get here?
Well, even with posters, it's the sign of the adhesive not working very well. But at the same point, they had other things where the adhesive worked too well, and they turned it into a tape that they used to seal like pipelines and stuff like that, because when it's on, it does not come off.
I found in Robert's library the history of DuPont in Canada. And so I'm 3/4 of the way through it. It's really, really interesting. Lots of wonderful lessons about when we talk about the bioeconomy or technology or whatever, or developing the kinds of industries that create jobs.
Absolutely no idea what
And I've just got this much left. And when I wake up in the middle of the night, I will read it, because it took me right back to reading it.
Yeah, but there is one over there.
I was sharing with my sister, Susan.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll go
So
up.
we should, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, time goes fast.
There's a recreational program over there.
Yeah. You guys are there.
We actually like this whole line, so it's happening, so
You want
we like to share
that?
it.
I think it's amazing.
Oh, right there. That's that.
I still have problems with that.
I just want to face it, well,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
Okay, appreciate
It's all I can say. Yeah, that's what I heard, yeah.
Okay, that planning meeting was
So,
eleven.
like I said, what's funny is
And I didn't know she had posted, so I didn't know whether.
what a great job.
It was just, oh, it was during review.
Like,
Okay.
You did a big presentation.
it's a thing like this, you never
It's on
know.
its own.
You know,
That's-
yeah, it's always written for like,
Yeah, and then, yeah, for,
Compared to
so it'll be on
the
today's,
Yeah.
whatever.
We're way
Yeah, there is.
That's what they tell us. I think that's-
Agendas and minutes, you can click on 2020.
They just don't want to play.
And there were links to the presentation on the OP review.
I love watching it.
Do you like?
Yeah,
And the videos up too.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm at, but if I have the agenda. I'll do that.
Our waterfront is over here.
And this is being found too.
Oh,
We might.
there's-
But this meeting I looked for it, because I thought maybe the rain would have it, you know, turn into freezing rain or something.
Like the post office?
The posted mark.
That was done a few days ago.
Yeah.
It should be there.
Man, I only need 2 more, I need plastic.
To me, this would be under transportation.
What's that?
It's
Maybe the one there.
Yes, there's a special.
Other thing.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yep.
Oh, okay. You're forgetting.
Clean up around.
I mean, you were forgetting that. You know.
Right, like transportation.
Nothing but else.
Yeah. It's better than person, it's just, you know,
All right.
She's got some words up, and I don't want to have to try to step over. We'll be a few more minutes.
So instead, I have so and the thing is that
Some of us.
she didn't know that you couldn't go watch safety. That's why
So
the slippers. But what you didn't know was that I wasn't
No, it wasn't.
So all the things that were in the basket. So it looked as though I was giving him, but the slippers had a little tag on it, babies. And they weren't, I mean, they were little boys. So I was going, so I just went back and so, I mean, that's what he liked. That's true. I mean, no, I don't.
That was the question.
As my middle daughter was going, I was sad with her. And she told her about the students.
but they're gonna come back.
Well, when I used to send money to books, now I would, if I were, more angry, he's getting
Some of these
shoes,
show
you know.
individualized, we got their own category.
Yep.
But, and it was interesting.
Yep.
The smartest thing, everybody was saying, you know, had their own reviews, why are we so much, why are our kids not as well as.
Oh, who knew?
Do you want to remember that statement?
Reading to your children. And that's what I heard. And Angus is not a good reader because he's the fourth child in a very, very busy family. So he's not been read to as much as the other three.
It's branding and marketing.
Look at values through.
See, we have one vote for Terry shirts.
They've also done on the lawn.
You guys should have a home.
No, they don't get it.
Right?
I'm trying to find it. This is what I'm coming in.
I'm very deeply into,
What to deny.
anything that's to council of the nationals, into neuroscience.
You were ready.
And what happened, that one of the textbook that I did, and one of the things, she loves, the technology stories, but in she noticed
here
That's
forever.
something.
Well, it's taking shape though.
The levels of anxiety, you know, et cetera, and shot on. And then she says,
What happened?
what does that mean? What happened?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Now I see the need for one person.
Catch
that.
We're
It's been a long time.
They're great fun.
Like 3/4 of that.
That waterfront could be
And now,
It's
everybody
causing
has
a lot of concern.
technology.
And my oldest daughter is a more retired school principal, and she is now teaching. This is all
You didn't see all the pics.
new teachers at Queens, and she likes it. Some of them is online, but she was just so there's tears right there in the door.
I like this
And
one.
this is the world of neuroscience.
This is definitely awesome.
That's the Ed Richards.
Yeah, we would make a community study. Working together,
Yeah.
Collaboration program was called.
Yeah.
This is something. The knowledge of the impact, like sometimes there's kids that play video games on my phone. And
This is all
we're only using the animal brain. And so forgotten and not used.
No time on the,
Provincial
no, we
government
don't
has
do
this
it.
idea that in compulsory, they have to be
You probably already
teach them, so the educators have been able to.
half dozen. Yeah, we did it perfect.
Because, and we've got a good minister.
Everything else is money, cooperation, and planning.
Some of the policies, but it's a very, very critical, and I understand that we said this. I guess for us. But what can I do? There's gotta be some kind of.
so you're looking, there's a pretty big cluster.
For that age group.
Is that what you're looking at? That all mean Rory, with site certification and stuff?
I think that one's.
Yeah, hopefully you get this.
Yeah, I think that's specific.
Yeah, okay.
Hopefully we
I
can.
know that, Wellington, they have had.
Yeah, exactly. It's getting close then.
4 to 5 of this.
No, but these can be grouped again, right? Because those are these, right?
Your mothers or fathers with the lips when they're getting on.
You know, it.
And they would know that it's neat. But it's a different kind of
Yeah, you can, some more. You know how they have those flashing signs at the high? And you,
It's in drizzle all the time.
yeah, makes it a long run. Yeah. Yep.
I went up Thursday afternoon and see that
Mhm.
light car.
It's unusual these days, right?
Normally when I get near the pond, I take the 407.
Yeah, exactly, just
Go to
over
the
here.
airport.
Yeah, didn't have it.
And the women were all gorgeous.
You want to use it for Mr.
Okay.
Get them back.
Takes them back to their school days, that's what it is.
Well, at least they're here.
That's crazy.
Oh, just right.
Yeah, that's not bad. You take us.
Started moving mine around. Short sleeve, long sleeve. Take over it.
Okay, nicely done, everyone, for round one of this particular exercise. The next step is this, is to try to infer some labels from what you see up there. So you need to come up, right, and we need to agree on how we might label these, and then we'll take the labels and throw them up over here. So some are easy, some are a little bit less easy. If anybody has better printing than I have, you're welcome to the labeler. So
By the looks of it, yours can't be any
Yeah.
worse than some of these.
This one's easy, right?
This is really fascinating to watch you thinkers at work.
You're referring to us as thinkers in the past as well as right
No,
today.
that's what we all need to be doing, a lot more thinking.
We need compliments on Saturdays to keep our.
Well, there's a compliment. The wheels are turning, I can see these wheels turning just from sitting.
Greg, can you review what we?
Yes, absolutely.
I've got
So,
a couple of paragraphs.
some of them are really quite straightforward, and some of them will be less so.
Okay.
So reading right to left, dog park, number 1, public transportation, number 2, infrastructure, number 3, housing, number 4. Waterfront.
How have we done with our separation so far?
I think it's great, don't you?
So far. The abstract items are yet.
Exactly. Waterfront, hotel. Here, I'll just say rent because it has fewer
It's
than.
almost there. It's like,
It's recreational.
I know, but too many letters.
Okay, no.
But yes, I absolutely.
It can be a good
understand.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
We'll
it's
stop
kind of like
at
walking along, no one comes to mind, but I never actually made it. Oh, it's kind of deep.
You?
And, wow, it's something nice.
Shared service?
You want to move the next one to infrastructure already?
You tell me. So the question is this is a water tower separated at the moment. The question is, do you want to just drop it in under infrastructure?
Absolutely.
Okay?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'll move.
Thank you. Downtown.
That's the maximum low we can go.
After that, when knees hurt too much, you get back up.
A little help on this one, do you want me to call this just 401, or?
401 development.
Yeah.
Yes. Or industrial park or whatever.
You pick.
Industrial.
401 Park.
See, he can spell 401 easier.
I was gonna say, in some ways it might be better, guys, because there's no guarantee it'll be industrial when it's all said and done. I had that become commercial one time.
That's true.
You know something we don't?
No, I'm just saying that I learned developers sometimes don't always agree with everything that we put out there.
And this is cooperation and efficiencies.
Shared services, I would think.
Shared services.
I would think those two
Yeah,
go
the
on
first,
shared
the first one
services
does
and.
anyway. They both do, actually.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just call this green. Educate and engage residents. Balance service delivery with pragmatic consideration of costs. Concerted effort to shop with local vendors, or engage with local vendors. So I'm not sure what that grouping can be labeled as.
Either downtown or active.
I guess my question is, you want to blow it up and try to find homes for each of them, or is there a logical cluster there?
That's probably it.
All of them? Or maybe it's half and half.
This one.
Yeah.
Must mention some specific
Yeah.
spot area. Okay.
Service delivery,
Service delivery might be over here.
maybe downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah, consideration of cost and effect, yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Matthew. Educate and engage residents and community stakeholders, so that's XDev and, what do you say?
Yeah.
Heritage. So we have 1, 2, 3,
Now we just have to narrow all that down.
we have 15 colors, okay.
This part of that.
Oh, that's right. So I think we agreed that this is admin stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so what's your number, 15?
Yes.
So are you happy with 15 areas of focus?
No.
No. Right, so here's the question, right? If you think about the labels, if you can read my printing, if you think about the labels you see at the top, right, is there a logical way to group those?
Nadia proposes that the downtown and infrastructure go under EdDev. I'm just sharing information.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But you also just need to consider that as a voice.
Exactly, exactly.
So it looks to me like infrastructure has the most post-it notes. Third one from the
Mhm.
right, doesn't it? So that's one.
Me, you're right, I'm just not clear about whether there's a lot of redundancy there or not. Kind of, right? Although there are a lot there, and they're pretty similar, right?
Let's agree that we all should work on infrastructure.
Yeah, so it lives, I guess the question is, does it live as a high-level vertical, right? In other words, what's the right label for it, right? And so what was the inference from your person?
Nadia says,
Downtown and waterfront would fall under economic.
I think the number of pillars should be reduced to 3 or 4. Again, this is just.
Yeah.
Right? One way to accomplish this is to group items under economic development as applicable. The Strat Plan Economic Development Initiative and other pillars. For example, the support and expand cultural activities would be better placed under EdDev instead of cultural promotion and EdDev development. I think one pillar is economic development, and tourism would be a subcomponent of that.
And so that's for you to discuss and debate if you like. I mean, it's just input.
I think my recollection is that we went the opposite way.
Yeah,
We
I
had
think
the
so.
3 at the top instead of one big one. Right, when we had the 5,
Mhm.
we had the slide
Yeah.
compared to the 5.
yeah. Just the operational efficiency is a prime example.
Mhm.
Although there's a whole bunch of like admin stuff there, with the OP and the asset management and stuff.
So it's gone, it's gone, in this version, it's gone strategically.
Yeah, it was a result of that time.
Yep.
Because since then, our current staff has brought that right to a standard, and it was lacking at that time.
That's very common, I mean, that's exactly how I see it.
Yeah.
So you're already down to 4 then, in other words.
In my,
Right, and so,
yeah.
so 4 of the people at the table, part 2, right, take the yellow ones at the top and see how you can group them. And you're welcome to bring them over here now, because certainly we're looking at, let's say, no more than 4. So if you will, right, you have to get up again, right, you have to take these and put them over there, right, in a grouping that makes sense.
Well, let's take the 4 big ones from that list and try and work the smaller ones in there.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
so, I mean, 1 would be,
Infrastructure would be the first one.
yeah, so that's it,
Okay, so directly,
yeah.
you're welcome to get up again.
Yeah.
And it just, again, what we're looking to do, you have 15, can you get 15 to 3 or 4?
So you want all the infrastructure that we think on that sheet, is that the idea?
Well, right now, we're just trying to get the high level categorization, right, and then I can move those over a bunch, right? So don't worry about moving
Yeah.
the, sorry,
We'll see downtown.
don't worry about moving these, right, I can move those later.
Okay, I would say downtown.
So just the high level.
I don't like the word green, I like recreation. I'm not-
I know, that was just my printing.
Because the green for us,
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, is the replacement of the green.
That's infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Hotel? Construction?
or is that,
Your next big one's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, what Ray just said?
What?
Our next big one is at,
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, which we can always do.
Replacement.
If we have something in there, we can always do it.
So can I move this to the second page?
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
And downtown is full, one park is at that. What did you say?
Well, at least according to, what's it?
Maggie?
Beautiful thing is it's both.
Yeah.
That one's both, because it's got to include infrastructure and it's also at TEF, so.
And downtown is also tourism,
Right?
which is, yes.
Yeah, it's like any
No.
one
No,
category.
Infrastructure.
Recreation's got the infrastructure.
If we so choose to leave it there.
Recreation, well, then youth should have recreation, what do you think?
Yes?
Youth to go.
Recreation.
Have you got recreation?
I think recreation should be on its own almost, is that a consideration?
Well, then how are we gonna separate
The
some of
brings
that?
us not.
That is not infrastructure then as well,
Yeah.
if you go into recreation and economic development as well, but they kind of all, a lot of these match.
But you can anticipate this, so you would have 30.1 A, B, C, right? So there's room to do the stratification, right?
And the program that we have now is character renewal and development.
Yeah.
So if you're developing recreational programs, then that is in the right spot, right?
Yeah.
Or you're developing a dog park, development on the waterfront.
Shared services should be under economic development, I would think, because that's what we.
Can I just say one little thing, just having listened to what she had to say?
Sure.
We talked about recreation and going way back to the health center, the establishment of the health center with cost us any money to do. It was all to do with preventive health care and so on. And then eventually, for whatever reason, 2 offices having to do with mental health, I was on one of the boards, 2 offices with mental health support were here in the town hall. And then they discovered some asbestos in the building. And so what they did was they moved those out to Augusta Township. And a lot of people, they talked to me a lot about mental health because I chaired the task force on mental health reform, and they think I know lots of stuff, which I don't. But I do know enough to know that those people that are going out there walking on the highway
Sandra,
are
through
in
Mr.
danger.
Deputy Mayor, we do have to remember that this is a special council meeting as well, so that our
Okay.
meeting rules and procedures.
But
do
I just thought that it was something that you would not have known about people going out there to the mental health center and walking on the highway.
Got it, thank you.
And I mean, to me, it's a thing that needs to be at least known about because of the health center being owned by the town.
Lori, Mike, if I may?
Sorry, Kim, but I did get some permission from a few other people that I could say something. if I may.
Lori and I were just speaking, and we thought maybe a consideration for our conversation would be to have one being the future and the past. Like, because initially we thought we were struggling with the.
I was just wondering about shared services, taking it out of active and almost having it on its own, because it's working with the other municipalities, and it's a future thing, like we're trying to get shared services. But I thought if we have it on its own little pillar.
We've had shared services for quite some time. The fire service has been shared for years. You can look at the education system as shared services. People come into town now to go to school rather than going here, here, and here.
There's many more opportunities though.
But, yeah, going forward with the way North Grenville has gone, rather than Kempville and North Grenville, and in the past few years, you can see South Grenville slowly starting to do the same thing, and we should be promoting ourselves, in my opinion anyway, as the focus point of South Grenville. This is where the banks are, this is where the restaurants are, this is where the commercial center is, the hub, so to speak, and cooperating with our neighbors to ensure that that happens to our benefit, I think should be there. So as far as future goes, yes, you're right, by all means. Past, yeah, but I don't know if it's a standalone column.
Where else would you put it, if I may ask?
Well, again, I stuck it under economic development because I thought that's where it should be.
And what's the it, sorry, the shared service?
Pardon me?
The it in this case is the shared service piece?
Shared service and cooperation, things, Ray mentioned something at, at the council meeting had in Spencer, you recall that he thought what he would suggest, or draining the west end of Edwardsburg and the east end of Prescott. I mean, there's a wonderful drain, the OCP rail yard going right to the river, and that's our northeast quadrant is wet, and their west quadrant is wet, and it only makes sense. And it's not a swamp, it's not a thing that they have to preserve, because you can see it's drowned forest. It's happened, it's not something that was 100 years and now we're trying to fill it in. So cooperation like that, for everybody's benefit, for future is to me something we should work toward.
I don't think green should be a pillar on itself either.
No, I just
I'm
didn't know
trying
where
to
to put
think
it.
of what you would fill
Well,
it with.
well, if we have a pillar already, downtown and waterfront development. Now, if you're going green, in my opinion, it's developing those programs to go green.
And can I tell you, I mean, but this is where you were taking us earlier this morning. Maybe green goes back up to those high level statements, right? It doesn't live at this level.
We should be looking at green in whatever we're doing.
Exactly.
I mean, if we're not, if we were to be putting new windows in here, it wouldn't make much sense to put single pane windows in water, because it's not very green, we're letting a lot of heat out. And everything that we do, we should be looking at the environment, how we're affecting it. Can we save money by doing this, or, do we gravel the parking lot as opposed to paving it? That type of thing. Green should be part of everything, but I don't.
Everything outdoors.
Stand alone.
Did we decide that we're taking out operational efficiency?
I think we, maybe that was just a big assumption that I made, but I think we did. But why don't you throw it out for the group?
But I mean, if we did keep operational efficiency, I don't know if we are, but green might go under that.
I know at one time we talked about the staff reports, a little bit of what you made mention earlier, that, and to add to the staff report, any regional focus consideration needed, question mark, any green consideration needed,
Yeah.
question mark.
Yeah.
So with that being the case, it would be under operational efficiency,
Yeah.
right?
And I don't see green just being an outdoor
No.
thing. I mean, in our everyday agendas, we should be using our iPads
That's right. Or
and not using, all the paperwork,
Yeah.
right?
So the only question then is, where does it go? Do we kick it back upstairs, right, to vision, mission, values, right? Do you kick it over to sort of operations and admin, or do you both? But what we do know, right, is that it is tiered,
That's right.
Yes.
right? So at the moment, I mean, there's a bit of a discussion here, right, and you have, versus 5, right, you have 2 verticals, right, which is not bad,
No, that's too narrow.
okay?
I think there are going to be some in those two that should be on top by themselves, personally.
I agree with you.
What's that, Brian?
Instead of just having 2 pillars, I think there are items under those 2 pillars, i.e. hotel, just an argument, that deserve its own pillar.
Like infrastructure and
Maybe
renewable.
that's not a good example, but there's going to
Yeah.
be something in there.
Like I can see infrastructure being in its own pillar, like we have now, and development. I can see economic development being the own pillar, like what we have there now. But there's also the pillar that we have downtown, waterfront, and development. To me, that would go under infrastructure, renewal, and development. Or, right?
So
Or that-
in conclusion,
I think I have gone yet.
In further to what Leanne was saying, could the third pillar be possibly community? And community includes recreation,
Youth.
downtown, youth.
Good work. I'll try to summarize, and this will catch you up at the same time. So you can see what we've done on the wall behind you. And in those were the groupings of projects that people decided were strategically significant right over this period of time. And these are the labels for those, and what we're sorting out right now is how best to group the labels so that we have 2 or 3 or 4 verticals where we had 5 and 4. Right, and so out there right now then is, at least for the moment, we have infrastructure, economic development, and then, the point was, maybe this one is too dense, does it make sense to pull it apart, or if so, how do you do that? And the third one potentially might be community. Is that good? Yeah, everybody's caught up.
So infrastructure, econ, and community, as the 3 suggested pillars?
Potentially. Yep.
Sounds good.
Oh, yeah, and they get these parked at the moment.
You can put the tourism, culture, and heritage under community, right?
Not bad.
So, just as a point of consideration, so you have economic development, but I think what you're also talking now about is community development. And that recreation side, the tourism side, those types of things, I think, is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
So instead of community development, it's just more encompassing.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you want to comment on that? Or?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I was going, is
Yep.
that sometimes if you kind of parse it out a little bit to say, what is economic development, what is community development, and so when you're getting into community development, it's much more the recreation, leisure, tourism, those types of things, whereas, and tourism kind of fits in both buckets, but certainly providing more opportunities for youth will be a community development type of activity.
Thank you. Comments, right? So the proposal at the moment, right, is, and it's just at the moment, and that's why they're sticky and you can move them, right? It is infrastructure, economic development, community development. So,
Community development will include the dog park, youth programs, recreation, and tourism.
I would think
I would agree with everything but tourism.
tourism would stay under economic development.
Tourism's broad ranging, so it's going to touch on 2 or 3.
This is where you have it before, so you might have to pull it apart.
That's right, that's right.
Can essentially go both.
Yes.
It all depends on what part of tourism that you're looking at, right?
Can I try it and see if you like it? Again, this is yours, you own it, it's just a draft. Right, and again, you can move the things around, right? But
I think what we recognized before is that so many of these things are interrelated that you could find aspects of them in first unit pillar that you want to create, like economic development, for example. There are so many things involved in economic development that have to do with infrastructure in town, with tourism, with cooperating with our neighbors, with historical, with future, that really you could take that and plug it anywhere and it would fit. It's a question of where does it fit the most, maybe, or where do, when we think about it, where do we?
I think you're right. The other thing that we're going to do this afternoon, though, is versus where we were before, is try to tie those things down, right? So if we put some kind of meat on the bones when we think about what the projects are, it'll give us a clear indication of where they might find a home. But I think you're right. Without that, we could put them on the block. So this is where we are so far, right, versus where you were, right? And again, this one drops out, right, and this becomes kind of owned by admin, right? And so, and I think your summary was really good in terms of why it made sense to have it here at this point, but it probably doesn't make all that much sense to have it there anymore, right? And so in other words, I mean, it's operational rather than strategic, right? And so, again, when you look at these groupings, are you happy with what's on what page? Right, and again, this is you, right? So feel free to get up and begin to move things around, right? Given how you see it at the moment. Does everything find a home?
Can we move, I think the agreement was dog park, youth and recreation committee development, Teresa's doing that now.
I read another one for tourism under community development.
Thank you.
Well, I was
Oh, you want me to
Yeah.
use this?
Well,
You see my printing?
That's the discussion, we're not talking about it existing in 2 places, we're actually talking about putting it in both places now.
For now.
For now.
For now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
So this,
Let's,
this is
the other thing too, and not to put too much structure on this, but
Yeah,
let's try to
yeah.
throw the questions through the chair,
Yeah,
just so
so
we can actually
where we go?
move
Here.
along.
Yeah.
yeah,
So, we had to do another point on, so tourism exists in both places for now, Matt?
so we've kind of talked about this a little bit internally from a tourism perspective, and what is what I'll call leisure, and maybe kind of that within 20 to 40 kilometers tourism, and what is that broader tourism where you're trying to pull from further away. So one is more community development, and I don't want to say regional because it really doesn't, it's not that big, it's more brought full to Iroquois type thing. But then from an ec development side, then you're talking about, you know, those large things where maybe you're doing a car show, maybe you're doing a poker run, those types of things where you're drawing in a much more diverse and farther away crowd, where you're introducing them to Prescott. Whereas the other community development side is they're already aware of Prescott and they're enjoying that venue. So.
Nicely done. Okay, so can I ask, sorry.
I'll ask Greg that one, is that cutting it, like that's a good definition and it makes sense, but is that, I mean, that's a fairly complex.
I don't think so. I think it's fantastic. I think it solves a really big problem.
So split it into two
Yeah.
subjects and just, we'll rename one.
One,
we
please.
assume.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, because I remember we had the discussions going back that to try to simplify some of the items that are here so we don't delve too deep into too specific, but that's, okay.
I think nicely done.
Yeah, okay, good. One question I did have is housing over here for infrastructure. What does that mean?
We had a long list of housing items.
Developing,
Because to me, that would be like,
is that right?
would that not be an act dev item?
Here, do you want me just to, well, I'll read you the ones that you have here, and you can tell me what you think. Affordable housing, seniors and families, more housing, develop residential lands, new development, woodland, prioritize plans for development, develop residential growth plan, infill, residential growth and attraction. Right, so they're, it's the same issue, right? I think there are two pieces. Right?
So I just, in the definition of infrastructure, maybe you've already discussed this, infrastructure to me means internal, means infrastructure, it's your water, your sewer. When you get into things like housing and waterfront development, that would take it to another area, unless you want to change the title, so it incorporates both. Because that, to me, is not infrastructure. Have like a community growth plan, affordable housing or whatever, that would be more ECDEV, or it exists in another pillar entirely. But infrastructure is just, I just don't think the title captures it, but, you know, I agree that-
maybe it's the title.
Yeah, maybe it's the title, but that to me all ties into ECDEV. But everything ties into ECDEV, like we've said too, I mean, it's all ECDEV.
But that's what I thought when we started pasting all those post-it notes there, we're going to find out that it's too big and it has to be split.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would agree that housing would be an active issue.
Over it goes. And, but here's the question, I mean, so, and is, when you think about affordable housing, for example, is that also ECDEV, or is that community development?
Depends on how you define community development, I guess, but you're right, yeah. Lee?
You almost took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say it almost depends on how you define economic development.
Kind of scares me when you two agree on
Did
it.
you not?
That's not worse than myself and Teresa. But when I immediately think of economic development, now when I think about it for a while in this discussion, well, it broadens out, but when I think of economic development, the first thing I think of is jobs created, money spent, and housing, building new housing can certainly be called economic development in the broader sense, but it's a short term, you're building a house, somebody's gonna move into it, and that's it, and that's community development more in that aspect. Economic development to me means us selling a property to a company that's gonna build a factory on it, they're gonna employ 10, 20, 30 employees, and that's gonna provide jobs in the community. That to me sounds more like economic development than housing. Housing, to me, in that aspect, is more under community development. But, like we just said, it does provide jobs because you're building houses, but that's a short term, it's not a long term thing.
Can I kick it over to staff maybe for input?
Well, my suggestion is, what do you call it, community development and growth?
Yeah, so there's a couple things you can do with housing. One, it can fit under economic development or community development. But from an economic development standpoint, it's not just the building of the house, but then as you attract more residents, and you're growing the need for businesses, sustainability, those types of things. So, Yeah, and so I see it as being both an economic development, community development. I think, and this is something where you can talk a little bit about, what is the plan for infrastructure, or for infill, and what, for the lands that we have left, what are we trying to achieve with that? So, are we trying to achieve more buildings and that sort of thing, or like apartment buildings, rental? Are we trying to achieve more single-family homes, those types of things? So I see it's a little bit of both, or is it one of those things that, and I think we talked about growth in and of itself the other day as part of the official plan, and then we talked about it this morning. Is that something that we kind of put separately and say, that's one of our strategic goals is growth? And part of that is going to be housing.
So fourth pillar?
Potentially, it's just something to think about. Does it fit under nicely under Act Dev? Does it fit under community development? Is there another part of growth beyond housing that would warrant a fourth pillar?
What about this, just to kind of move it ahead, do you want to set housing aside, right? Because we're about 15 minutes from lunch for what it's worth. Right? Do you want to try to agree on the ones that we agree on?
Yeah, I just had Gory first, and then.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So I just had a quick question about our point about housing under infrastructure. When we did the official review plan on Monday, we talked about all the empty lots we have and all the vacant stuff. And I think, like if we're gonna develop woodland area, isn't that infrastructure based? We have more roads, more sidewalks.
That actually could be a good way to split it off. We could have a category capacity, infrastructure capacity for new housing development, which would be roads, water, sewer. So it would exist under infrastructure in a separate way. That may be a good way to kind of branch it out. That's a good point.
Is that a proposal?
Well, Gory's talking about, so it does tie into infrastructure. So if we say we develop woodland and we're looking at, bringing fill in, bringing extended water and sewer services, whatever, you could have it exist under housing and move it to community development or whatever, but it is an infrastructure component. So you can just change the title of it. So housing is a broader subject. We go to ECDEV or community development, or whatever we decide, and infrastructure, you just change it a little bit. So it does show that there's an infrastructure component. I like that because we've got to put money into infrastructure and it also could tie in as well if we ever extend the services north for some of those housing projects that have been proposed in the past in Augusta and so on. So there's a real strong infrastructure connection there, which would grow the community at large. So that to me makes a lot of sense to be able to speak.
Can I ask you this? So you're thinking you would put the break down at this level? If you said infrastructure and capacity up here, would that work as well or not?
Yeah, it does tie into what we would be looking at. We do have capacity in water and sewer now, so it's not an urgent need, but if we had somebody come in with a 300, 400 unit subdivision north of the 401, it obviously become more of an issue. But if you just change that title to just capacity for housing development, or capacity for residential development, or capacity for development even.
So let's get the word out there before we lose it. Right?
Yeah.
What side are those?
Yeah, but just to throw the subject in, whatever name we came up with, housing infrastructure, residential infrastructure, that way it would exist in both places, because it really is two priorities, because you gotta go one to have the other, and you gotta have the demand to feed into the other.
But some of us may have put the sticky note on the wall talking about fixing existing infrastructure.
That to me would
That
be separate.
includes sidewalks, roads, sewers, water tower.
So you're right. And that's clearly there.
Okay, so can we put that one on
I'd
there?
like to have one of these.
Yeah, that's one we'll all agree on that one.
So what we have here so far is we have public transportation. This is waterfront, this is also sort of capacity development, so.
That's also, that's a possible community development one to me, but.
But can I I'll read out what's here.
Yeah, well, if everybody agrees on that one, we could probably just, that'd be an easy one to add, if everyone's okay with, assuming.
Which one?
The sidewalks, roads, infrastructure improvement.
Fixing what.
How do you want to
Yeah,
label it?
fixing what we have, yeah.
I'll call it fix what we have.
Yeah, just basic infrastructure improvement.
Fix infrastructure And there's the housing distinction there for the moment. Just on the waterfront one, here's what you wrote. Renew and enlarge marina, waterfront development, harbor needs and renewal, acquire waterfront east of existing town limits, managing waterfront recreation development. You get it, right? So that's the theme.
So want to just go one by one and just infrastructure capacity, anybody has something on there that they really think should be on there, we can move to that. Is that okay, Greg?
Yeah, I'm not sure we were taking it, I'm sorry.
Just in terms of like walking down, not absolutely walking down, if anyone else has another subject or you've already done that, that would exist under infrastructure. Anybody around the table has an item that should go there, we're okay.
The water tower, should go in there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I can, over lunch, I can move the kind of the logical pieces over to this.
Okay.
Okay, well, can we have a quick discussion before it's a water towers one? Everyone good on the water towers? Obviously it's underway. Anything else anyone has under infrastructure capacity that could go there now? Just so we can make Mary's job a little easier for.
Yeah, it's,
It could be in 2 pillars.
If I could do?
Yeah.
Before Matthew mentioned, fourth proposal of quote,
Yeah.
which I like, but if that's not gonna sell, economic development and growth could be a consideration,
Good idea.
to have the word growth somewhere, you know?
Yeah. I suggested community development growth for housing, but it works in either spot.
Yeah, but community development is developing, the economic development and growth, in my opinion, is actually retaining and attracting.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it, but if we're gonna do housing as the overall priority or community, like residential growth, then it does have to go in economic growth, because it's obvious, so it wouldn't be
That's right.
community development, so
Yeah,
that's the only thing with changing the title, I'm fine with it, whatever you guys want. So anything else under infrastructure capacity now, any other point that anyone had put up or thought of now that we could toss in there, just so we can sort of focus on infrastructure, Leanne, you?
I do like what Teresa's saying about growth. I mean, because we have to make sure that we're linked to our mission and our value statements, right? So growth is something that we all talked about and we were all good with that. So I think I would like to see economic development and growth.
Can I try this? Because I like the point that Oliver making around growth, but growth is an outcome of strategic activity, right? And so if that's the case, then growth probably needs to go back to vision or somewhere like that.
It is, but I mean, and I agree with what you're saying, but we actually are seeing, the population numbers we talked at the other night, when we're seeing projections, we're up to 4,800 people by 2040 or 2041, whatever, and that's not something that we think is desirable. We'd like to see like more sustainable growth than that. So I think it does need to exist as whether it's a pillar on its own or it's tied in. I like what you both just suggested, economic growth personally. It'd be nice to capture it somewhere.
Yeah, and it's your plan. I mean, can I just kind of?
You're absolutely right on the,
Because, I mean, almost by definition, it's an outcome, right? But if you put.
and it's part of every pillar.
Yeah, it's an adjective, not a noun.
Yeah.
So, growth,
You're gonna see
you as a person can grow too, right?
So
You
the
can
pillar
just
should
grow
be,
and grow.
pillar should be low values predictions of the water. Pillar predictions.
That's
of
the
the water.
pillar.
But, and this is what your planner sort of said to you as well, right? What if growth made it back up here? Progressive and growing.
and we did agree that we put it in
Yeah.
there, but can we just toss it in now as an easy,
So are you talking both?
No, just economic growth as Teresa and Leanne suggested. So housing as an overall topic would exist there then, because that ties into.
So downtown exists here, hotel, 401 park, tourism is still here.
Barring further discussion, we should put
Where
it.
did housing go? Did we take it off altogether?
What's that?
Oh, no, I rewrote
Yeah,
it.
you rewrote it, so it's just housing on its own, I guess. So just to go back to infrastructure capacity, is there anybody else have anything on that?
the only thing I just looked up there was water and sewer, but is that under this? Water and sewer extension. It's,
Let's,
Here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the extension, it's water.
to me, that's a separate one that probably should be on its own.
And that's fine, I think it's up there on its own.
Yeah, I would agree, I think it should be on its own, because it's a totally separate subject in a lot of ways.
So over here then, just, you want to keep pushing us forward?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's okay with infrastructure, and then, do you want to do active and growth? Is there anything else under active and growth that anyone had in their priorities, or?
We'll find out back when we take those stickers off.
And see if they'll have a home.
Oh, I thought you thought that was what you've done when you reviewed that already. Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
these are just the labels for those, but we'll make sure that they all find homes over here.
Okay,
over lunch.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I'm jumping ahead then, okay, no, I'm good, sorry. So Greg, anything else then, on this?
Well, I think at this point, I think you're driving us nicely, you kind of roll this up, right? Maybe the question you want to ask is this, are people happy with three?
The three pillars?
And don't worry about the language, because we can change that, right? But thematically, right, does it make sense to you?
And the fourth one will just be et cetera.
Well, that's what it was last time, right? And we might decide that the extra one just doesn't live, right, at this level, right?
Thank you. And I think once we bring our notes and place them at home,
Yep.
there might be a collective part of our notes.
That we haven't laid.
that we haven't even
Yeah,
labeled,
yeah.
that we can, technically
I agree.
add another pillar.
And that's my promise to you over lunch, is I'll try to move them over here in a logical way, right, and we'll see what we get.
Yeah.
It's sorry to jump forward, right?
No, not at all, but I mean, you know what, I mean, yeah, thank you for doing it, right, because the truth is that they were really, we're doing really quite nicely here. And because what you've done so far is there's some agreement on vision, on mission, on values, right, you have what I think are kind of your three major buckets, and there might be a fourth. Right? And then it's really just a matter of, for the afternoon, right, and maybe this is the way to roll it up, to break, right, is that what we're going to do in the afternoon is make sure that all the projects are accounted for, right, make sure that they're, if you like, kind of rank ordered in terms of priority, and that we add as much specificity as we can in terms of measurement and performance management.
And I guess the one question, just before, if we did look at a fourth one, the one that I noticed from the last time is we had some staff, more internal stuff, like policies, procedures, and anything. And I'm absolutely fine with the three pillars or whatever, but that would be one area that there's a whole bunch of them there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that could be one that, because I don't know how that would exist.
Well, and that's where we were going, that's really the debate that you want to have,
Okay.
I mean, because by definition, they're operational activities, so do they therefore not belong in a strategic plan and rather in an operating plan, right? That's where we just.
And I guess that's a question. Is it common, I mean, that would almost be used as a performance metric. So for example, you throw a bunch of policies and procedures on there and you're asking basically staff to carry that out. Is that a proper format for that in the strategic plan, or should that exist in other documents?
I think it exists in your business plan, and
Yeah.
because you would say, well, you know what, I
Performance
mean, we want a bunch of youth programs, let's say, right, and go get us some youth programs, which is really the marching orders to the organization. Right, the way in which they do that ought to be professional, right, but I think, in my opinion, right, so you defer to their level of professionalism.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that, and just whatever exists. So basically, we're good for the break now?
I think.
One thing I will do though, just before we do have the break, if I could just, any staff feedback from what we've done so far this morning with Matt, you've mentioned a number of things obviously, and again, some good feedback, but if it's okay with you as well, the rest of the staff, is there anything that you'd like to toss back at us before we keep going break? That's pretty wide open. Be careful.
They did contribute.
Yeah, to the one. I just if there is anything.
I would definitely recommend that waterfront be shifted to active and growth. I feel like that is probably the proper pillar. Maybe shared services could go under the infrastructure capacity category. And you may want to build on that infrastructure and capacity so that it's kind of referencing maybe more overall capacity for the municipality. A little hesitant on the inclusion of growth. I firmly believe growth is more of a vision value and there's overlap. You're looking for growth out of every single one of those pillars. So I think adding growth just to ACDEV would lead to a little bit of confusion because you are looking for that out of all three. Other than that, I think, you know, the three pillars are looking really good as far as, you know, the key priorities. And then I'm not sure what's over there.
So can I just follow up on your, because the shared service one seems clean, right? The waterfront one is probably a debate, right? So do you want to have the debate now or later?
On the waterfront? Yeah, we can do it. I don't know how quick it'll be though. What's everybody's take on waterfront? It exists in a few different places as well.
It's community
It's
development.
community, it's also, it's an
It
active
is.
thing, and,
And it's infrastructure.
yeah, and it's also, yeah, it's infrastructure too, and it ties into rec, it ties into active, it ties
So
into.
Well,
maybe we
like
pull it
community.
apart this afternoon.
It might,
Right.
it might be able to be divided by waterfront development and marina.
Yeah, and as long as waterfront development though, I mean, there's a number of issues under that as well. I mean, there's Centennial Park, there's the different developments in the parkland, so maybe waterfront parkland development, and then, so yeah, you probably put it on
I'm
the
just saying, some of us might.
But that's a solution.
Might have a stronger feeling for marina than we do about Kelly's Park, or vice versa.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like the recreation component can exist along, like, and that's, how far down are we drilling here too? Like, we're not gonna identify specific projects, like, we're gonna expand the beach. and we're gonna put
But that's an example. It's a great question. I think that it's a perfect discussion to have. Like when you think about on waterfront, you can probably pull it into probably 3 different pieces. Right? That's okay.
Okay.
Right, but that's probably a discussion for this afternoon, right, if that makes sense. So maybe that solves it. Again, I know you're trying to manage time and you want to hear from other people, but so sort of raise the waterfront piece,
No, it's
but
good.
it probably needed to have that discussion.
Okay, so we'll highlight waterfront for more discussion this afternoon. Thanks a lot, Dana. Folks, anything else?
The only thing I'd add, I kind of understand the points about the operating efficiencies and stuff, but the reality is you as the town are here for service delivery. So to me, that's always one of the pillars of what you provide, which is services to anyone that comes to the town for whatever reason. And to me, it's just one of those, don't get me wrong, the shared services, all that sort of stuff kind of goes under it. And again, you get down to how much you drill down, and I don't know you need to drill down to every policy and procedure, but to me, it's, you know, delivery of services is exactly what you're here for the municipality, community services, whatever you want to call it, so.
Sure, and it did survive the last time under a number of you guys, there's a lot of points up here on that. So I'll have to look at that this afternoon. That would probably go into another pillar, because I don't know how it exists.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I think it's its own
Yeah.
pillar, but that's to me the fourth pillar that should almost always be there, because you're here to deliver services to the people that call this place home.
And this, the next question is, what are we going to, like, what exists in the strategic plan in order to enhance those services in terms of.
And that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
that's
sure
the
the
tougher
numbers
stuff
are
to find out.
Yeah. Kate?
I think it's a really good discussion this morning. It's a difficult task sometimes to sort so many broad ideas into some smaller categories, but I think that they're a good representation.
Anything from the tourism perspective that, or rec that you see that's,
I like the community development kind of category as a whole, and sort of fitting things more like community services. I like that direction.
great, thanks. Matt, for last words before we, go into the,
So I think once you start moving all of the small stickies over into that and create some broad categories, I think what I'm kind of foreseeing is that if we have something called community development, that there be, you know, kind of the 4 as you see there, and then some stratification under that as well to say, you know, what does youth development mean? And does that mean creating opportunities, partnerships, those types of things, and what is the measurable outcome? That I think at the end of the day, also when we leave this room, that everyone understands what 401 development means, or what, you know, because if we're foggy on it now, it's only going to get worse the further away we get from today. So that is kind of core for me, is that we can all agree on what these things are, and so that way we can agree on what's the measurable outcome on the end.
and I guess that's, you know, for Greg's input on just how far we drill down, because I know we've, you know, discussed that in the past. I remember when we first presented this was about, you know, it's sort of a strategic document, it's not an individual, like an action plan, so are we gonna do X, Y, and Z? it sort of informs that, but I just want to know what the limits are, and that's obviously.
And I'm kind of with Matt on that. I mean, the more specificity, the better, right, in this case. Right, the difference between sort of this process and the previous process was that there was a follow-on activity there, right, in terms of operationalizing this stuff. Right, and so if we assume that, that follow-on piece isn't necessarily there, right, then it has to be done here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, I just wanted to know how far we're going. Dana?
Just from a staff perspective, I think the more specificity, the better. For staff, we need to have actionable items, right? You have your high-level priorities, but we need to have a really good vision of what you envision as being those steps to get us to achieving those priorities. So from my perspective, the more specific, the better.
Okay, and I would agree for the most part, but we're talking about getting out of here by 3 o'clock today, and I think we all probably like to get here at 3 o'clock today, and having to specifically outline every one of what this means is going to be impossible.
No, I don't think we're saying that. It's just so that we kind of agree with the yellows there, and then as those have kind of morphed into there, that we're agreeing that those kind of align, then what we'll do is we'll take this back and start to format it into something that
Okay,
works.
sorry, maybe I didn't explain it, that's where I would like to
Oh,
leave it
sorry.
off today, rather than drill down to, we're gonna do this and this and this and this. There's a point for that discussion, but boy, that's like.
Not today.
That's a very,
That's
very.
almost every day.
Yeah, and obviously budget and everything's gonna tie into a lot of this, especially for next year. So, no, we all gonna take a break, everybody has their food here, is there lunch brought in, is
I
that?
think it's still on route.
Plan?
We can break and use the facilities while we.
Alrighty, so, okay, we'll take a break now and try to get back. We need to make it a little bit of a working lunch if everyone's okay with that, so we can move along in a half hour, 45 minutes max. So let's say 12:45, we're back at it.
Good.
Or before, depending on.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think we'd be this far back. So let's see.
Well, that's it, you jinxed yourself.
Yeah, it's true.